Bryce Weller couldn't help but smile as he wiped the sweat from his forehead. Earlier that day, he'd been promoted to shift supervisor at Lawson Containers, effective immediately. Working the night shift for the foreseeable future was the icing on the cake since most people hated the night shift, but for Bryce, it was a great time. His son Tim was a junior in high school and participated in several sports and clubs. By working nights, Bryce could attend Tim's events without missing work. Over the years, he had worked the night shift more than once and had developed a napping system that allowed him to do it all. It was for this reason that he crawled along the rafters of the roof in his attic on a warm June day. After being informed of his promotion, he was given paid leave on Thursday and Friday. It was an opportunity to rest and prepare for his new position, which began Monday evening. Bryce had long planned to build a small apartment over his detached garage. This would become his fortress of solitude, where he could sleep peacefully all day long, avoiding the usual disturbances and distractions that often arise when trying to sleep at a time when most people are already up. Bryce was laying cable so he could have internet in his apartment. The Wi-Fi signal in the house simply did not reach the apartment. He decided to place an extension cord at the end of his home's IC closest to the garage, hoping it would give a strong signal inside his apartment. While Bryce was working on unwinding the cable along the entire length of the attic, he heard faint sounds coming from inside his home. It was early afternoon, so his wife Brenda must have been at work. Tim was visiting Brenda's parents for a few days, so the house had to be empty. Bryce crawled through the rafters to the place where the sounds were coming from. Having come 5 meters closer, Bryce was able to determine the source of the sounds. It was his bedroom. The conversation became much clearer as Bryce perched himself above the unused air conditioning vent in his bedroom ceiling. Brenda insisted that the old vent blew cold air on her at night, causing her to experience frequent neck pain. Bryce installed the new vent as far away from Brenda's bed as possible, but never got around to sealing the old one, which required sealing the hole in the ceiling created when the vent duct was pulled out. Bryce just left it on the ceiling without attaching it to any ductwork. He carefully lifted the fiberglass insulation that lay on the attic floor and slowly opened the vent. Everything sank inside him when he saw his wife with a thin man. As painful as the vision was, Bryce couldn't look away. He couldn't stop watching the train wreck that was once his marriage. The couple had been having sex for several minutes when Bryce's brain finally began to function. He set his phone to record video and carefully placed it on the vent so the camera's eye had an unobstructed view of his marital bed. "I like the way you are," the guy purred. "Your husband never touches you." "I asked you not to mention Bryce," Brenda protested somewhat weakly in Bryce's opinion. "It's not about him. He's a good lover and a great father." "I'm sure it is. We have sex right here in his bed, but you insist that you like the way he does it. What's wrong with this situation?" "I don't know why I let you talk me into doing this here, right here. You don't have the slightest chance of being caught in your apartment," Brenda moaned. The couple stood still for a minute before Bryce saw the man roll off his wife. "Do you see how powerful it is when you take risks?" asked Brenda's lover. "Having sex in my apartment is great most of the time, but doing it in your marital bed is another level." Bryce recognized the man enjoying his wife as soon as he rolled over onto his back. It was Dan Grant, a driver for the package delivery company where he and Brenda worked. He was recently divorced and had a daughter in Tim's class. "That sounds terrible," Brenda replied, but without any real emotion. "You wanted to have sex in my bed because the thought of outplaying Bryce turns you on. You act like it's a competition." "It's a competition, at least for men," Grant replied with a soft chuckle. "You're a sexy woman and the sex is great, but knowing that you're married and I'm having sex with you in your husband's bed makes me a winner. It's an incredible feeling. It wouldn't be so great if Bryce caught us here. I don't know why I agreed to this, but it won't happen again. I'm worried that Bryce will find us. It would ruin my marriage," Brenda admitted. "Let's make a deal," Grant suggested. "As long as you don't have sex with your husband, I won't insist that we do it in his bed." Once he has you again, we will have to return so that I can reclaim my place as leader. I'm not going to refuse Bryce. He's my husband, Brenda reasoned. He's a man and wants sex on a regular basis. I'll try to dissuade Bryce from having sex and keep these meetings in my bedroom to a minimum. I don't like to think about what would happen if he ever caught us. Bryce parked his truck in the detached garage. It was hidden from prying eyes, so Brenda had no idea he was home and certainly had no idea he was eavesdropping on her conversation. His face was covered with sweat that continuously flowed from his body onto the insulation that covered the attic floor. He forced himself to remain still as he listened to the loving couple dress and leave. As Bryce headed towards the stairs, he considered what he had just learned. His wife was cheating on him. She even planned to abstain from sex with him if possible, to appease and please her lover. Thinking this over, Bryce forced a grim smile. Brenda would have no problem refusing sex with him because she would never have it again. While taking a shower, he examined his situation and quickly came to several solutions. He didn't let Brenda know that he knew about her infidelity. Tim had 2 years of high school left, so Bryce decided his main focus would be his son. He wouldn't worry about Brenda anymore. He just didn't care what she wanted or how she felt anymore. Why should he care about her when she obviously treated him with complete contempt? He didn't want to leave the house he'd spent 15 years renovating so that some sneaky idiot could live there in comfort while having fun with his wife. Brenda didn't sound like she would seek a divorce, so Bryce decided to try to hold out until Tim graduated from high school. He knew there was one thing he would need. His apartment would be completed much earlier. Bryce decided he would include some major improvements. Instead of just sleeping there while working the night shift, it would become his living quarters for the next year and a half. He would need a small kitchen as well as a full bathroom. By the time Tim graduated from high school and headed off to college, Bryce would have had time to make a plan for what to do next. To this end, Bryce called several contractors he knew and made an appointment to get an estimate. He decided to hire a company to complete the job. It would be done quickly and professionally, and he would pay someone to do it. There was no longer any need to save pennies by doing everything himself. His promotion would easily allow him to cover the costs. For the first time in his life, Bryce realized that his time was more important than money. If he saved $1, half would go to Brenda. He ended his old way of life. He always tried to do as much housework as possible, thinking it would benefit his family. Everything changed when he saw that it wasn't betrayal. He was going to make sure Tim's college education was fully funded. Besides, Bryce was going to rebuild his life and have some fun while doing it. He no longer felt any affection for his unfaithful wife. Bryce had gotten over his emotions by the time Brenda walked in after work and saw him sitting in the kitchen. "Are you already at home? Did you leave early for some reason?" Bryce looked closely at Brenda and decided that she seemed different to him. She had a few wrinkles on her face and had gained a few extra pounds. Why hadn't he noticed this before? Had his love for his wife blinded him, causing him not to notice her shortcomings? He was sad to think about his sudden change of heart towards Brenda, but it was her decision to have an affair. He simply reacted. "Yes, we have a little problem at work. I've been asked to work some nights starting tonight. They let me go home, pack my lunch and rest. I'll come back later." "They shouldn't ask you to work nights after a day shift, even if you had some free time during the day," Brenda reasoned. "You'll be exhausted. At least lie down and sleep for a few hours." "Good idea," Bryce replied. "I'll just crawl under the sheets and wait." Brenda insisted too loudly. "Remembering the state of the bed, I just remembered that I need to wash my bed linen." "Okay," Bryce answered calmly, chuckling darkly to himself at Brenda's discomfort. "I'll just use the bed in the guest room. There's no need to worry so much." A few hours later, Bryce left the house as if he was going to work. He went to a local sports bar, watched a baseball game, and drank a few beers. Previously, he had installed an air mattress in his future apartment. Once he was sure Brenda was asleep, he parked in the garage and walked up the stairs to the waiting air mattress. He slept surprisingly well. One of the contractors Bryce spoke with the next day was between projects and offered a very good price if Bryce agreed to start immediately. In 2 weeks, the contractor's crew would move to a new construction site a few kilometers away. Bryce agreed and signed a contract to begin work on Monday morning. His night shift worked from Saturday evening to Thursday evening. The plant was scheduled to close Friday night and restart Sunday night. Brenda knew Bryce wouldn't have to work Friday night, so she was surprised when he got ready for bed the next night and headed to the guest room. "Why are you going to sleep in the guest room? We won't see each other much while you're on the night shift, so why don't you sleep in our bed?" asked a puzzled Brenda. "Since I worked last night and slept a few hours this morning while you were at work, I'm not very tired. I'm going to watch a baseball game and maybe a movie after that," Bryce responded with his planned excuse. "I'm trying to get used to being awake at night and sleeping in the morning. I don't want to ruin your sleep. Unless you think we should have sex," Bryce suggested, wiggling his eyebrows suggestively. Brenda's reaction was exactly what Bryce expected. If he hadn't heard her conversation with her lover, he would have missed her brief deer-in-the-headlights look before she smiled faintly. "I am very tired today. Maybe we could just cuddle a little and go to bed," Brenda answered. "Besides, Tim is home tonight. He can hear us." "Hugs won't help me," Bryce answered. "As soon as I hold you in my arms, I want to do everything with you my way. If you rule out sex, I'll just remove the temptation and sleep in the spare room. You've never worried about Tim hearing us before, so this is just an excuse to avoid sex. You really don't have to make anything up. I'm not the kind of guy who forces himself on a woman." "I know that, Bryce. You are right. It was pretty weak, and I'm sorry. I'm just tired and not feeling romantic. I hope you understand." "I understand this better than you think. Let me know when you're in the mood. If I'm in the mood at the same time, we could meet." "Good night," Bryce retorted, turning and heading into the guest room, leaving Brenda with a confused look on her face. On Saturday, Bryce played catch with Tim for an hour and then did some yard work. When it was time for bed, he walked down the hall to the guest bedroom. Brenda looked at his back and wondered why he was acting so strangely. Bryce went to work early on Sunday evening to prepare for his role as shift supervisor. By the time the production people started showing up, he felt very good about his work situation. He didn't bother to tell Brenda that he had been promoted to foreman. She had secrets that she kept from him, so he no longer had any qualms about keeping things from her. His shift went smoothly, and he was well received by those who worked under him. He decided that he had a great group of people on his shift. The new position implied greater responsibility, but Bryce had seen all the problems before and knew how to deal with them. He settled into his job with minimal adjustments or difficulties. Brenda had already left for work, and the construction crew was doing the installation when Bryce returned home Monday morning. He spoke briefly with the foreman to make sure they were on the same page and then went inside. He fell asleep immediately but was awakened several times by loud noises from the crew working in his apartment and once by a telephone ringing. Cursing himself for forgetting to turn off the ringer on their landline in the guest room, Bryce responded with a sleepy hello. "I'm sorry, Bryce. Did I wake you up?" asked his mother-in-law, Barbara. "Is that why you called?" Bryce barked with some irritation. "You wanted to know if I was sleeping?" "No need to show off," Barbara answered. "I just wanted you to know that Bill and I heard that you're on the night shift and we won't bother you. If you need us to do anything for Tim while you sleep, just let us know." Bryce hung up without answering. As he unplugged his phone, he thought about how stupid people could be. It took a few minutes, but he fell asleep again. The construction crew completed their work in less than a week. Bryce was amazed at how the contractor completed the entire renovation in 4 days. It would have taken him 4 months. Waking up on Friday afternoon, he went to a furniture store and ordered a double bed, a small kitchen table, 4 chairs, and a small sofa. He then drove to a large appliance dealer and selected a large flat-screen TV, refrigerator, oven, and microwave. By Monday afternoon, Bryce believed his bachelor pad would be ready for him to work full-time. He chuckled, remembering how bewildered Brenda had been when she came home from work on Monday to find a team of men scurrying around the detached garage. She approached Bryce while he was talking to the foreman, and insisted on a private conversation so that he could tell her what was going on. "I instructed them to complete the apartment above the garage," said Bryce. "I want to be able to sleep all day long without people barging in or calling me. I made it double insulated to keep noise to a minimum. There won't even be a landline phone. Since I'll be working nights for a while, I thought it would be a huge advantage to have a place where I could sleep without disturbing you and Tim. You won't even notice that I'm nearby." "I won't notice that you're nearby?" Brenda repeated. "You are my husband and Tim's father. We need to know that you are somewhere nearby." "I'll go to Tim's baseball practices and games, then I'll bring him home so we can spend a lot of time together. Do not worry about it. We can all have dinner together. I told you a few days ago to let me know when you're in the mood for some special love, but you haven't accepted my offer yet. Are you asking me this tonight? You're acting like an idiot. Husbands are expected to do more than just have sex with their wives whenever they feel like it. We expect conversation, seduction, and the exchange of ideas. Marriage is not just sex, you know that." "Don't even think about giving me a lecture about what constitutes a good marriage," Bryce warned. "I will at any time oppose the efforts I make for this marriage to your efforts. This will work fine. All you have to do is let me know when you want me to serve you in your bed." "I'm not some goddamn cow that needs to be serviced," Brenda growled. "You will not do any service until you offer a sincere apology. I want to spend a nice evening in a nice restaurant with your apologies, asshole." Bryce broke out into a huge smile and simply walked away, leaving Brenda completely confused. It was easy for her to stop Dan Grant from demanding sex with her in their marital bed, but Brenda was worried about Bryce's attitude. He just didn't look like himself. He ignored Brenda, and it bothered her. He had always been a very attentive husband. She decided that she would give Bryce an unforgettable evening as soon as he apologized for his rude behavior. She knew that he wouldn't be able to go without sex for a long time. A man cannot stop having sex 2 to 3 times a week and be happy. Brenda was sure he would want what she had. He had been like this since they first met. He was too young to lose interest in sex. By the following Wednesday, Bryce was fully moved into his new apartment. This coming weekend, there would be 3 days off due to Labor Day. Tim's junior year was supposed to start next Tuesday. "How would you two feel about going to the Diamondbacks game this weekend?" Bryce asked over dinner on Thursday. "They're playing the Dodgers and fighting for the pennant. This should be a great game." "Seriously, that would be amazing. Thanks, Dad," Tim blurted out. "You know I don't really like baseball," Brenda grumbled. "I'll refuse this offer. I'll find something to do around the house." "I bet it will," Bryce answered under his breath, but loud enough for Brenda to hear. "Everything is settled. Tim and I will go to the game on Saturday." "Wow, I can't wait to tell Scooter about this," Tim blurted out. "He will be so jealous. He's a big Dodger fan. He previously lived in Los Angeles." "Why don't you invite him with you?" Bryce suggested. "Baseball is more fun to watch with friends, especially if they are fans." "I'll call him right now." "Thank you, Dad," Tim answered excitedly and rushed to get his phone. "You definitely made Tim happy," Brenda said. "Baseball is a great way to bond with boys. Horace is a pleasant, polite young man." "Holy crap, his real name is Horace?" Bryce asked, shaking his head. "No wonder he has a nickname. What parents would name a boy Horace unless they hated him?" "Tim told me that Horace's father died of a brain aneurysm 2 years ago," Brenda continued, pointedly ignoring her husband's comment about the boy's name. "He and his mother moved here this summer to be closer to her parents. They are old and in poor health." "I'll just call him Scooter and pretend I've never heard his real name," Bryce said just as Tim burst back into the room. "Scooter's mom said he can go," declared an almost frivolous Tim. "It will be great." On Saturday afternoon, Bryce parked his truck in the driveway of a nice ranch house in a nice neighborhood. Before he could stop, Scooter was already running out the door. He hopped in next to Tim as soon as the pickup was safely parked. "Mr. Weller, Mom says she wants to meet you before we leave. I think she wants to make sure you're not a serial killer," Scooter suggested. "I'm sorry about that." "No problem," Bryce answered, getting out of the truck. He walked up to the house and rang the doorbell. The door was opened by a slender, rather plain-looking woman about Bryce's age. With what he thought was a quick glance, Bryce determined that her legs were her best feature. They were muscular and perfectly shaped. Her jogging shorts gave him a chance to admire them. Her stomach was flat, and her breasts barely moved her top away from her torso. "My legs look pretty good compared to the rest of my body, don't you think?" Scooter's mom asked, much to Bryce's confusion. Yes," Bryce agreed as soon as he saw the smile on the woman's face. "You have a magnificent pair of legs." "Do you think I should let my son go to a baseball game with a man who stares at every woman he sees?" the boy's mother challenged. "I'm trying to raise a gentleman." Bryce saw the laughter in the woman's eyes and instinctively knew that she was playing with him. He decided to play along with her. "What you're really asking is whether you should let your son go anywhere with a man, since looking at women is the best part of being a man," Bryce replied with a grin. "He needs to learn to appreciate the fairer sex. I'll show him what to pay attention to and how to do it. I, of course, hope that you will be less noticeable during these life lessons that you will give to Horace," the still smiling woman objected. "The first thing he'll teach him is to beat anyone who calls him Horace except his mom, of course," Bryce joked. "Understand, my son will learn to be cruel to people who call him by his name and also to appreciate women's legs. Does this explain everything well enough?" "Not even close," Bryce answered. "I'll show him the subtle art of secretly assessing butts and breasts. It is important that he receives a comprehensive education and does not become completely fixated on any one piece of female jewelry." "This is a big relief," Scooter's mom replied, thereby gaining even more respect from Bryce. "Have a good time and be sure that Scooter will call if you're going to be late. By the way, my name is Grace." "Seriously, Grace? What do your friends call you?" Bryce asked. "Oh, for my male friends I answer to Minx, Raven, Candy, or Bubbles. My friends call me Grace," the woman answered with a calm face. "I think it sounds tempting." "I'm Bryce. We're going to be friends, so I'll call you Minx. I kind of like this name." "Why am I not surprised?" Grace replied before bursting into hearty laughter. "Horace can come with you any time. I like your sense of humor. Tim is a very polite young man, so I was pretty sure his parents would be okay. Thank you for inviting him to the game. We are a baseball family. I used to go to as many Dodgers home games as I could. My father even played in the minor leagues before I was born. He was pretty good, just not good enough professionally," added Grace. "Scooter is a great guy, so it's not a problem. I'll keep an eye on him and make sure he gets home safe and sound, Minx. Have a good day." "I was just kidding," Grace protested. "You will always be Minx to me," came the quick reply as Bryce turned and headed back to the truck. Bryce had a great day playing. Scooter managed to catch a random ball. Both boys ate too many hot dogs and drank too much soda. They fell asleep in the back of the truck before Bryce could even pull out of the parking lot. Arriving at Scooter's house, Bryce carefully woke the boy and walked the sleepy teenager to the front door, where he was greeted by a beaming Grace. "He probably ate too many hot dogs and soda," Bryce admitted. "Of course he did. He was at the ball game," answered Grace. "Thank you very much for picking him up and returning him safe and sound. I was very pleased." "Scooter is a great guy, Minx," Bryce retorted. "See you at the boys' games." Bryce settled into a routine that worked well for him. He would return home, have a light breakfast, and then sleep from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Thanks to the extra soundproofing and thick curtains on the windows, he usually slept soundly. Brenda sometimes complained that he always slept in his man cave even on weekends, but she dropped the subject as soon as Bryce asked if she needed his services. Bryce decided that she was really worried that Grant would insist on sex in her bedroom, and she would get caught. This suited Bryce just fine. This indicated that she had no intention of asking for a divorce at this time. His goal of staying married until Tim graduated from high school seemed achievable. Because he was a foreman and received less physical activity, Bryce bought a home exercise machine that was advertised as a complete body workout. To his pleasant surprise, it worked as advertised as long as he was diligent in using it. He attended all of Tim's baseball practices, and soon the coach had him work with a few kids on the sidelines while the coach worked with another group of players. Tim was a pretty good player and was showing signs of improvement. But Scooter was a real surprise to Bryce. He showed some talent early in the season, but was unsure and timid. Bryce worked with him as much as he could. They even spent several hours on weekends training at a local park. Bryce decided that since he hadn't had sex, he might as well relieve the tension by playing baseball with the boys. As Scooter's confidence grew, his level of play increased dramatically. By mid-season, Scooter was hitting balls and playing shortstop at a high level. Tim was the starting center fielder and batted third. Bryce was extremely proud of both boys' accomplishments. One thing Bryce couldn't help but notice was the attention some of the children's mothers were starting to give him. For some reason, his jokes really made them laugh. His efforts with the children were constantly praised. Several mothers would bake something for the team, but they always made sure he got a piece, no matter what it was. Tim's friendship with Scooter, as well as Bryce's time with the boys, naturally led to Grace and Bryce spending time together. Bryce thought of her as a smart friend with a great sense of humor. He decided to ask Grace if she had noticed the increased interest that the mothers showed in him. "I may be a little crazy, Minx, but I have to ask you a slightly personal question," Bryce began. "Almost the second size," was Grace's quick answer. "What? I didn't ask that," Bryce admitted. "When men preface a question to a lady by saying it's personal, don't they usually ask her about her breast size?" "Well, yes, that's usually true," Bryce agreed with a chuckle. "At this point, I was going to ask if you've noticed that some of the mothers have been treating me differently in the last couple of weeks. Don't you think they seem a little friendlier lately?" "Well, aren't you Mr. Observation?" Grace retorted. "You don't really know what's going on, do you?" "I would need more information regarding what you're referring to before I could answer that question," Bryce said thoughtfully. "I understand the rule of flying in the infield. I know you never win the first or last inning at third base. You don't mean those baseball axioms, do you?" "No, I was talking about the unwritten rule of never rigging or stealing bases when you have a huge advantage," Grace quipped before becoming more serious. "If you were paying attention, you would know that the friendliest mothers on the team are also single mothers. You're a great dad, a nice guy, and you have a pretty decent job. This makes you a damn attractive candidate in their eyes." "What about the fact that I'm a married man? Wouldn't they take this into account?" Bryce asked. "Yes," answered Grace. "That's why they didn't actually try to seduce you. No one has tried this yet, have they?" "Nobody seduced me, as if that was ever a problem," Bryce replied. "I'm married, so obviously I can't be a good match for anyone." "Bryce, I don't like that it feels like I have to be the one telling you this, but we're friends, so it falls on me. All mothers know that your wife is cheating on you. This is not enough. Rumor has it that she cut you off from sex. You're not sleeping together, and it's obvious that you'll be a free agent in the not-too-distant future. These women want to sign you up for their team as soon as you're discharged." Bryce was stunned by Grace's revelation. How could so many people know about his personal situation? Who could know about his sex life or lack thereof? And then it dawned on him. Brenda must have told that bastard that they weren't sleeping together, and he bragged about it to someone. "Do you mean your wife or her lover?" Grace asked, trying to diffuse the situation. "I have to say that you don't seem very surprised by the rumors. Have you already suspected Brenda of cheating?" "No, I never suspected," Bryce answered. "You had no idea at all?" Grace asked incredulously. "I knew she was cheating. I just never suspected it," Bryce replied. "Here you amaze me. How could you know this and not suspect?" Grace said. "It's quite simple. I didn't suspect a damn thing until I found Grant and Brenda in our bed. In a matter of seconds, I went from knowing she was cheating on me to being sure. I completely stopped being suspicious." "This revelation raises more questions than it answers," said his confused friend. "You saw them do the horizontal mambo, but you stay married and don't go to jail? You're not a pervert, are you, or a guy who likes to watch? Please don't be one of these scum." "But I'm not going to," Bryce assured. "I decided to adjust my priorities. Being able to spend a lot of quality time with Tim and not be a part-time dad became my first goal. Living with Brenda rather than divorcing her seemed like the best way to achieve this. I started working at night, and it always had a negative impact on our sex life. I built a nice apartment over my detached garage and lived there. I told Brenda it was so I could sleep during the day without being pestered and annoyed by everyday crap. She was unhappy with the sleeping conditions, but Grant told her that every time she had sex with me, he would insist on regaining primacy in our marital bed. This seemed to bother her, but not enough to stop her from having fun with him. She thinks her affair is a secret and wants to keep it a secret. I haven't told her, but I won't have sex with her for any reason. I went to the clinic and got tested for sexually transmitted diseases. I am clean. I want it to stay that way. Are you serious? Did you hear that? What a bitch. How can she treat a guy like you so badly? What an idiot this guy is. Grace was indignant. All the single mothers think you'd be a great match. I think you may have an inflated opinion of my desirability. I've never been a mating CE idol. I have a really good job, so maybe this will help me look better to some of the more desperate women, Bryce suggested. Are you joking? Look how beautiful you are. You have a wonderful smile, Grace noted. You are strong, kind, smart, and get along well with children. If I weren't so homely and flat-chested, I would have already thrown my hat into the ring along with my bra. I think I better shut the hell up. Thank you for being a good enough friend to tell me what people are saying and thinking, Bryce replied, frowning. I had no idea that everyone knew that I was a cuckold. It's quite awkward. I can't make my own wife happy. I'm a world-class weakling. You are a good person who wants to be a good father to his son. You're strong enough to take this crap so you can have a great relationship with Tim. Horace thinks you're pretty cool too, Grace said. Who? Bryce asked. You must feel better if you can tease me with Horace's name, Grace remarked with a smile. Minx, you are a great friend. You didn't let me stick my head too far up my ass. I just hope Tim doesn't find out. This horse has either left the stable or is damn close to it, Grace said. Horace says Tim knows something is wrong at home. You're pretty much avoiding his mother. He's bound to hear something when so many people know about it. Do you know what worries me? Added Grace. Scooter is in love with Heather Grant. How awkward is this for him and for me? She's a sweet girl. She has no idea what a pathetic jerk her father is. I'm just glad Tim isn't the one snooping around Heather, Bryce said. What a mess that would be. I should be happy for small favors. Scooter told me that Tim is very interested in Holly Ingram, but that shouldn't surprise you too much. She comes to every game and cheers for his every move, said a smiling Grace. Yeah, I noticed she was hanging around. She seems like a nice girl. I knew her father and uncles at school, Bryce recalled. They are a good family. 2 nights later, Tim's team played in the first round of the district championship. Bryce realized that as game time approached, he was probably more nervous than Tim. It didn't help that the usual 3 single mothers were determined to get his attention. Norma Wilson was wearing a top that exposed a significant portion of her ample breasts. She constantly found reasons to lean toward Bryce to pick up something or look for something. Bryce had to admit that her cleavage was impressive. Brandy Dorn kept her breasts covered, but in a very tight sweater. Her thin waist and flat stomach emphasized the charm of her full, firm breasts. She constantly asked Bryce questions about the team and players. Jillian Patterson was less subtle. For some reason, she had to stand close enough to Bryce to press her impressive breasts against his arm or side. Grace grinned knowingly, handing him a soda and a hot dog before returning to her place on the first base side of the diamond. Bryce noticed that all 3 ladies had found some reason to leave his circle all at the same time. It seemed strange to him until he heard a familiar voice behind him. I thought I would join my husband this afternoon to watch my son play. I didn't think I'd have to wade through so many fans to get to him, Brenda said louder than necessary. What's going on, Bryce? The game hasn't been called yet, but Tim looked pretty good in batting practice, Bryce replied, trying to dodge the question. Nice try, Brenda snapped. Why do these women hover around you like flies over shit? It's good that you're not allergic to silicone. If you're asking me to explain how the female mind works, then you're out of luck. I have no idea, Bryce admitted. I'm even surprised that you're here. My son is participating in an important game. I'm here to support him. Obviously, there are other mothers here. Obviously, some of them are not just here for their children. You were too busy to come to the games, Bryce noted. How did you manage to evade your obligations today? Brenda glanced at her husband when he mentioned her obligations. She wondered for a moment if he was hinting at something. As soon as this thought came into her mind, she immediately threw it away. If he had any suspicions, he would be much angrier and much more confrontational. The only thing she knew about Bryce was that he would never accept her betrayal. If he had known, he would have let her know it in the most obvious way. I made time. This game is important to Tim, which makes it important to me. I haven't seen you much since you left for the night shift, so I thought it would be nice to spend some time together cheering on Tim, Brenda reasoned. As Brenda and Bryce sat down in the bleachers, she noticed that several other mothers were watching her, and they didn't seem all that friendly. Brenda thought about it. What could she have done to anger other mothers? This was the first game she attended. She had no other form of interaction with any of them, so she couldn't think of any reason why they would dislike her. Then Brenda noticed Grace sitting to the side as usual. She didn't do much to stand out, although Brenda noted that her hair was professionally styled and her legs looked good in shorts that were perhaps a little short, especially given the cool daytime temperatures. The game began, and Bryce's attention was drawn to the playing field. The first two batters struck out before Tim even entered the batter's box. Brenda became concerned for her son when she saw how fast the first serve was and how close it went to his head. The second pitch was low and away from Tim, but he connected solidly and threw the ball to first base for a stand-up double. The next batter was Scooter. Brenda noticed that he seemed older, stronger, and more confident than last summer. The first pitch hit the catcher's glove near Scooter's head. If he hadn't leaned back, it might have hit him. Brenda heard Bryce chuckle as Scooter prepared for the next pitch. Trying to intimidate these two boys is a big mistake, Bryce said to those within earshot. I just hope the pitcher tries to sneak a fastball to Scooter. The rest of the crowd nodded in agreement as the pitcher began his pitch. He was a strong thrower, and he added something extra on the next pitch. There was a loud crack as Scooter's bat met the baseball crossing the court. Oohs and ahs echoed through the stands as the ball disappeared over the center field fence. Tim ran across the plate and waited for his friend to touch home plate before exchanging high fives. Grace beamed with pride as she watched her son circle the bases. She looked at Bryce only to see small tears on his cheeks. He spent countless hours practicing on the field and hitting the ball with Tim and her son. His pleasure and pride were almost tangible. Grace was extremely grateful to Bryce for the mentoring he had provided to her son since their arrival. Horace grew up to be a fine young man, and Bryce played a huge role in the development of his character. Are you really trying to tell me that you haven't had sex with your husband since the day we had sex at your house? Asked her incredulous lover. You said I should stay away from him for as long as I could, and you wouldn't insist on sex in our house until he made love to me. He was working the night shift that day and has been sleeping in a room above the garage ever since. We haven't even shaken hands since then. This is just crazy, Dan replied. He's too young and you're too sexy for him to lose interest in sex. Is he gay? Does he have a girlfriend or something? He's definitely not gay, Brenda insisted. He's very courageous. He would never cheat on me. He just works at night and is tired most of the time. He only shows up for dinner except on weekends when he works in the yard and stuff. No normal man married to a woman like you would voluntarily give her up even if he worked 18 hours a day, Grant said. He must be cheating. This should make communication easier for us. He gets what is his and I get what used to be his. Bryce would never cheat on me, Brenda said firmly. He takes our marriage vows very seriously. He's not the kind of man who wanders around and gets involved in some tawdry affair. Is this what you think you're doing? Dan demanded. Oh no, this is just a temporary phenomenon. He was too busy with work and Tim's baseball game to pay much attention to me. I deserve some fun. I work hard to run the house, cook, and I also work full-time, Brenda reasoned. We know that this won't last long. Dan smiled as he considered Brenda's words. I guess you're right. We'll just enjoy the sex while it happens. Give me the day when I can master you in your bed. It still turns me on. When Brenda remembered Dan's words, she became worried as she watched the two girls hovering around Bryce slowly move away. It was obvious that he had some damn attractive women with big breasts and toned bodies who were interested. She realized that she needed to protect her marriage from the efforts of these women. Then she noticed Grace sitting alone on the side. Brenda quickly came up with a plan. She smiled widely and sat down next to the surprised Grace. Glad to see you again, Grace. Horace has become a pretty good baseball player and is a very sweet boy. You should be proud of him. I'm proud, admitted the wary Grace. Tim is doing very well too. Bryce's time with them pays off. He truly was a great mentor to Horace. Yes, sometimes Bryce is too good, Brenda replied, seeing an opportunity for her proposal. I'm sure you've noticed how those big-breasted blondes are always hanging around him. I wanted to ask if you could help me. I know Bryce would never go astray under normal circumstances, but he's a man, and all these women do is show off their big tits when they're around him. How do you think I should help you? Asked Grace. Spray them with cold water when they get too close? You know that I cannot attend most games and practices due to my work and other commitments, Brenda began carefully. I know I can trust Bryce with you. You're not his type at all. If you would just stick around when I'm not around, I would really appreciate it. I'm going to tell Bryce that he needs to stay closer to you and be more attentive. These husband-stealing women will think he has his eye on you and hopefully leave him alone. I know it might feel awkward for you to pretend like this, but there's a good reason for it. You could have saved our marriage. Please let me clarify if I understood correctly, answered the incredulous Grace. You're worried that these attractive, sexy single mothers might seduce Bryce, so you asked me to kind of fill in for you when he's at ball games and practice. Do you think I'm a successful single mother because I don't have big boobs and I'm pretty plain looking? I didn't say you were sad. I just know Bryce. For whatever reason, he's less likely to fall in love with you than with some buxom ex-cheerleader. You would help him keep his vows. Do you think your spouse cheating on you is a deal-breaker? Grace asked thoughtfully. Would it be so bad if he slept with a few of these willing ladies while you remained his number one? Oh, I hope you're joking, Brenda objected. I love my husband, but I will never tolerate cheating. This really is the deal-breaker you mentioned. This destroys the marriage contract. I could never come to terms with infidelity. As far as I'm concerned, the marriage would be over. You must understand how I feel. You have been married for many years. I understand what loyalty and dedication are. It is quite logical that adultery violates the marriage contract, Grace admitted. I have to agree. I need to go see Bryce. Can I trust that you will keep a close eye on him when I'm not around? Asked Brenda. Oh, yes, Grace answered with a smile. Be sure to explain all this to Bryce. I'll keep my part of the deal. Who better to keep a good man celibate than a flat-chested, homely, boring woman? I wouldn't put it quite like that, but you covered it pretty well. Thanks again, Brenda replied as she walked away to join her husband. Brenda wanted to talk last night before I left for work, Bryce began at practice the next day. The point is that there are too many sexy single moms hanging around me. She believes that I would be much safer if I stayed close to you, Minx, or as she calls you, Grace. Why don't I feel safer? You are a smart person. You know that you will never be safe around a single woman, no matter how small her breasts are or how homely she looks, Grace joked. Scamp, you are one of the most attractive women I have ever met, Bryce answered sincerely. You are the whole set, not just silicone and bleach. Wow, you only made my job more difficult, Grace admitted, blushing. I'll make an appointment to have your eyes checked after the baseball season ends. You'll find that I have 20/20th vision and am a great judge of people, with one glaring exception, Bryce said. It seems I underestimated my loving wife. I think she may have underestimated us, Minx replied. That is, if you really find me attractive. Bryce was amused by the single mother's reactions as Minx remained by his side. He spent a lot of time with her, chatting and joking. The most common reaction was disbelief, followed by disappointment. It took Minks less than one training session to eliminate him from the herd. The team's next game required a 3-hour drive to Middleburg. It was decided that the team would travel the day before the game and spend the night in a hotel. It was hoped that the boys would be rested and fresh for their next challenge. Bryce dropped off Jake Winston's parents as well as Minks. The discussion along the way focused on the team's chances of winning the district game and possibly the state title. They arrived at the hotel right behind the team bus. Bryce helped Ralph Winston get his luggage out of the trunk. Some parents, including the Winstons, volunteered to accompany the boys and were to stay at the same hotel. All other parents had to book rooms in different hotels. With several games being played the next day, there were a lot of fans and players in the city. 6 teams from different school grades would compete in 3 games. Before Tim boarded the bus, Bryce told him that he would not be staying at the same hotel and had to behave himself in front of his coaches and chaperones. He assured his son that he would be at team practice the next morning. "What hotel are you staying at, Minks?" Bryce asked as the Winstons wheeled their bags into the team hotel. "In the same hotel as you," was her simple answer. "I never told you what hotel I was staying at. How did you know?" asked a puzzled Bryce. "I didn't know that," came the short answer. "How do you know that we are in the same hotel?" Bryce asked. "It's quite busy this weekend. You might not be able to get a room at the last minute." "I'm sure something will come up," Grace replied with a wide smile, confusing Bryce even more. Bryce arrived at his hotel a few minutes later. "Scamp, would you like to see if you can get a room while I check in? I can wait to make sure you find something." "Thanks, but I'll just wait here. I'll be fine," she insisted. Bryce finally began to see the light when he checked in and collected his room access cards. He returned to his truck to find Minks already waiting for him. "Is there any chance you might want one of these cards for my room?" he asked. "This is room 207. "What a caring gesture," Minks exclaimed, getting out of the car, taking the keys and kissing Bryce on the cheek. "Let's go to bed. It's going to be a long night." The next morning, Bryce woke up much more tired than when he went to bed. At first, he mentally struggled with the reality of breaking his marriage vow, but Minks helped him deal with it. "Let's look at this logically. Not only did Brenda cheat on you, but she agreed to distance herself from you sexually. Even if she didn't, she would still be putting your health at risk by having unprotected sex with her lover. Essentially, she made sexual relations with her unsafe and unwanted. She released you from your vows and marriage contract. I haven't had sex for more than 2 years. I've been tested and I'm clear. You were tested after discovering she was a cheater, and you are in the clear. I've been taking the pills for over a month in hopes of sleeping with you. Can you honestly give me one reason why we shouldn't sleep together? Is it because of my appearance? Your wife thought I was the perfect front for all the busty, beautiful women who showed interest in you because she knew I would never be sexually attracted to you. Am I just unwanted? Minks, you are extremely desirable. Never say it's not true. I have never cheated on Brenda, and that requires some adjustment in my thinking, but you made a great case for us being together. I'm ready," Bryce said with a grin. "You need to know something else first," answered Minks. "Both my parents are in hospice care and are not expected to live long. My brother was sending Horace feature films to his friend. My friend is the baseball coach at the best prep school in Los Angeles. If Horace gets a baseball scholarship for next year, we probably move back. I really like you, but we don't expect a long-term relationship. This can't go on forever. Look at us. You're a handsome married man whose wife is cheating on you. I am a simple woman, and I have a son who has a chance to get a sports scholarship to a good university. I have to do what's best for Horace," she concluded. "Nice to hear about Scooter," Bryce said proudly. "He's a good guy and a very talented baseball player. I'm glad he will have the chance to hone his skills in a highly competitive environment and at the same time receive a good education. You are the main reason why the best schools pay attention to him. I know how much time and work you devote to him. The irony is that you, by being such a good mentor to my son, actually gave us the opportunity to move back to Los Angeles away from you. I don't think I'll have a one-night stand," Bryce said. "Perhaps it would be better to give up sex completely than to have a one-night stand and become a monk again." "You are a stupid person," Grace said. "I said that we would probably return to Los Angeles for the next school year. There are more than 6 months left before that. A guy could spend a lot of time with me in 6 months unless he's too old for a steady diet of hot sex with a very needy woman." "That's something we just need to find out. Will you live up to your nickname, Minx?" Bryce joked. "I will do this for you," Minx promised. "When you need me, just whistle and I will teach you to whistle." "I've always been told that my whistling is quite respectable," Bryce quipped. "Then you're doing it wrong," Grace retorted. The baseball team won the state championship, and Scooter received a scholarship to a prestigious California prep school. Both of Grace's parents passed away just before Thanksgiving within a week of each other. Bryce and Tim attended their funeral. Bryce met Grace's brother and immediately liked him. "Bryce, meet my brother Dexter," Grace introduced him. "Dexter, this is Horace's baseball mentor and our good friend Bryce." "Holy crap," Bryce exclaimed. "Your name is Dexter?" "That's right," Dexter agreed. "Only Grace and my parents ever called me Dexter. I respond to Grim the same way as everyone else." "What do you call my sister?" "I call her Scamp, but don't ask me why," Bryce insisted. "I don't think I need to ask," Grim replied with a laugh. Bryce spent Thanksgiving with Brenda and Tim at her parents' house. For the first time in months, Bryce found himself preparing to go to bed with Brenda. They always stayed over for Thanksgiving night, and Bryce couldn't think of a good excuse to change that tradition. Brenda was in no hurry to undress in front of Bryce. Brenda was a very attractive woman with a beautiful toned body. "We haven't slept together for a long time," Brenda said. "You must already need love. Make love with me." Bryce felt awkward about his next comment even as he responded. "Are you finally admitting that you need proper maintenance? I knew you would break. I will be glad to please you and give you a wide smile on your face for the holiday." "You pathetic bastard. With that attitude, you won't get another round for many years," Brenda growled. "What is wrong with you? You might just forget that I even thought about letting you touch me." "Okay," was Bryce's only response as he rolled over so his back was facing Brenda. He didn't second-guess his comment, although it was out of character for him to do so. This actually achieved his goal, which was to avoid sex with Brenda. However, Bryce did regret that his marriage had ended to its current state. Brenda was worried about Bryce's snide remark, which was making it difficult for her to sleep lying next to him. She wondered if he knew about her affair or was just unhappy that they hadn't had sex lately. She decided that she would have to discuss this with Dan. He needed to forget about having sex with Brenda in her marital bed. If she was having sex with Bryce, this statement caused her to avoid and refuse her husband, which could ultimately make him suspicious. It could have ruined her marriage. Bryce had a daily routine that he followed when he worked the night shift. He went home, ate a small breakfast, and went to bed by 9 a.m. Often he woke up around 2 p.m. from the fact that Grace climbed into his bed naked. They made love for an hour before she left, so she could be home when Scooter returned from school. Baseball was over for the season, and this allowed Bryce to shower and shave when Tim returned home from school. Bryce often took a nap in the evening before leaving for work. Overall, things worked out well for Bryce and Grace. One evening in early December, Bryce received a call from Tim shortly after arriving at work. "Dad, Scooter and I are hanging out with Heather and Holly in Heather's car. You said we might be gone until midnight because there's no school tomorrow. We have a problem. Heather was driving her mom's car. We had a flat tire and no spare tire in the trunk. We're stuck on D Street, and I'm a little worried. I see a few guys down at the slot machines, and they're looking in our direction." "Are you broke on D Street at the damn arcade?" Bryce swore. "We'll discuss this later. Is Heather driving that Corolla?" "Yes, it's a 2017 Corolla," Tim answered quickly. "I'll find a wheel and tire that fits, and it'll be right there. Keep your doors locked and call the police if you have any problems. Take care of these girls." Bryce put his phone in his pocket and headed to the production floor. He quickly found the person he needed. "Gus, you still drive that Corolla, don't you?" Bryce asked the bearded man operating the forklift. "I need an inflated tire that fits your car, and I need it right now." While Bryce was talking to Gus, another thought occurred to him as Jack Reynolds walked by. Jack was Holly's uncle. His younger sister was Holly's mother. "Jack, my son and some friends are stuck on D Street with a flat tire and no spare. Holly is with them. I take the inflated tire from Gus and head there. I would appreciate it if you came with me." "I have a real spare tire, not some crappy donut," Gus said. "Let's take my car and go there right now." Jack, Gus, and Bryce immediately headed toward the door leading to the parking lot. They were concerned about children being in that part of town late at night. It was not a good place for good children, especially teenage girls. Brenda lay in bed enjoying the warmth she always felt after messing with Dan. His phone rang, and he glanced at the caller ID. "Damn it, this is Heather. I have to answer this or she'll beat the crap out of me for ignoring her." Brenda could only hear one part of the conversation but was concerned about what she overheard. "What the hell are you kids doing there?" "Well, that's too bad. These boys are old enough to handle a little problem like this. Call ADA. It's not my fault your mother is too dumb not to keep a spare tire in her car." "What was all this?" Brenda asked as soon as Dan disconnected the call. "Nothing to worry about," was Dan's response as he reached out and caressed Brenda's firm breast. "Heather has a flat tire, but she called AAA to get it fixed. Several young hoodlums were hanging around Heather's car when Bryce and his friends pulled up right behind her. Bryce quickly got out of the car and pulled the jack and tire iron out of Gus' trunk. Gus brought the spare tire, and Jack knocked on the driver's side window and motioned for Heather to lower it so he could talk to her. "You guys sit quietly until we change the tire. If these idiots cause any trouble, we'll take care of it. Holly, you're going to have to explain to your mother why you're even here on D Street." Bryce carried the jack behind the flat rear tire and slid it under the frame. He twisted it until it was snug against the frame, then moved in front of the tire to loosen the lug nuts. The apparent leader of the group of tough guys approached Jack while Bryce was working on the tire. "Here you are on our territory. You need my permission before you mess with this machine." Before Jack could respond, Bryce swung the pry bar sharply and cracked the guy on both shins. The man fell to his knees and then rolled on the ground, rubbing his shins and cursing up a storm. Bryce grabbed the punk by the collar and pulled him face down to lie next to the flat tire. He then sat on the man's back and continued unscrewing the nuts. The two closest gang members rushed toward them, apparently intent on pulling Bryce away from their incapacitated leader. Jack hit the first one on the side of the head and he collapsed as if knocked down. Gus stepped forward and the second guy stepped back out of his reach. "Lift the car a little and I'll remove this tire," Bryce said to Jack in a calm voice. Jack continued to drive the car higher and higher while the gang of thugs shouted insults and curses at the men. Every now and then, the guy underneath Bryce would try to squirm out from under him, but Bryce would grab the man by the greasy hair, lift his head a few inches, and forcefully push it back down to the pavement. It only took 2 lessons before the man on the ground decided to remain still. Bryce unscrewed the lug nuts and removed the flat tire. He accepted the working tire from Gus and put it in place. Once he had all the tabs snug, Jack lowered the car. All 3 men seemed oblivious to the thugs who taunted them as they worked. Bryce tightened the nuts and stood up. He accidentally kicked the leader in the balls when he was about to step over him. "Are you stupid bastards talking to us?" Bryce asked, walking up to the assembled gang members and casually tossing the tire iron from hand to hand. As soon as he walked toward them, the group scattered. "You guys get the hell out of here," Jack instructed, as Bryce pushed the gang away from the car. "Be careful not to run over those stupid bastards lying in the street and stay away from this part of town." The 3 men climbed back into Gus' car and followed Heather's car as it reached the next intersection and turned toward the children's houses. "I can't believe you hit that stupid bastard in the shin like that," Gus laughed. "He collapsed like a sack of crap." "Thank you for inviting me along," Jack added. "My arm hurts, but it was great to hit that punk in the head." "So you were sitting on your butt while you changed the tire?" Gus chuckled. It was funny to watch. The men were still laughing and talking about their experiences as they walked back to their jobs. By morning, this story had spread throughout the plant. Stories of courage and adventure have always been popular, especially during the night shift. They helped the night go by faster and gave everyone a chance to take their mind off how tired or sleepy they felt. The next day, when Bryce woke up, Grace jumped into his bed and kissed him long and hard. She was naked and clearly hungry for him. "Horace told me what happened last night. You were great. Thank you for taking such good care of the children," Grace blurted out. "You're about to be so lucky. I would have arrived earlier, but I had to wait until Horace and Tim went to visit the girls since they didn't have school today." Brenda had only been at work an hour when Sue Blaine approached her at the water cooler. It was obvious that she wanted to talk about something. "I heard Bryce, Jack Reynolds, and Gus Benson make fun of a few would-be tough guys who were hanging around the kid's car on D Street. I understand that getting hit in the shins with a tire iron knocks the crap out of a punk pretty quickly." Brenda immediately put it all together. Last night, Heather called her father seeking help, but he brushed her off. Apparently, her problem was bigger than Dan was admitting. Sue used the word children, so that probably meant Holly was involved along with Horace and her son Tim. "I'm curious what you heard," Brenda replied. "I would like to see if the rumors are close to the truth." By the time Sue finished telling her what the rumor mill was spreading, Brenda was furious with Dan Grant, although she hid the fact from Sue. His daughter turned to him for help in a situation that could have turned into a disaster, and Dan simply brushed off her concerns. Bryce, along with Gus and Holly's Uncle Jack, reacted as men should. They protected the children and helped them get out of a difficult situation. Dan ignored his daughter's plight in favor of sex with Brenda. The realization that she had sex with a man who refused to help his own daughter and some of her friends, including her son Tim, hurt her deeply. How low had she fallen? Bryce was 10 times better than Dan. The sad thing was that Brenda knew this from the very beginning. Why did she even get involved with this selfish, pompous ass? Early that morning, Brenda found Dan alone in the break room enjoying a snack while his delivery truck was being serviced. She wasted no time in pouncing on him. "Heather came to you for help last night, and you blew her off. These kids could be in great danger, and yet you told her to call AAA. What kind of father are you?" "Everything worked out," Dan answered briskly. "Your husband and a few of his buddies saved the day. So what's the problem? Bryce reacted like a real man. You turned your back on your daughter. That's the problem. My son was in that car." "If your dumbass husband is so special, why are you having fun with me when he hasn't touched you in months?" Dan asked with a chuckle. "You pathetic bastard. Being a man has nothing to do with you," Brenda spat. "Bryce is more of a man than you'll ever be. It's all over between us. Don't ever try to talk to me again. I don't want anything to do with you." "As you say," was Dan's calm answer. "There are many married women in the world who are looking for someone like me. If you change your mind, you know where to find me. I'll still give you pleasure if you ask nicely." Brenda burst into tears and ran out of the room. She cheated on her husband, disrespected him, and risked her marriage and family for a petty, selfish sociopath. She only hoped that Bryce would never find out how stupid she had been. With that thought, she realized she had a lot of catching up to do. Grace had just finished with Bryce when she heard sniffling behind her. Surprised, Grace turned around to find Brenda watching her with tears streaming down her cheeks. "How could you do this to me?" Brenda exclaimed. "I trusted you both, and you do this?" "I'm just doing as you asked," Grace replied, reaching for her clothes and starting to put them on after she pressed a finger to Bryce's lips, ordering him to remain silent. "You wanted me to keep those busty blondes from getting their claws into Bryce. I sacrificed my body to achieve your goals." "I didn't want you to sleep with him, and you know it," Brenda replied as her anger began to crowd out her tears. "I can't believe Bryce could cheat on me like that, especially with some skinny bitch." "I know it's hard to stomach the fact that Bryce and I are dealing with freaks, but there's no reason to be insulted," Grace reasoned. "Your poor husband was ready to explode. I'm just helping to relieve the pressure he put on me. Dan Grant didn't want you to have sex with your husband, so Bryce had to turn to someone. Luckily, I was in the right place at the right time. You can thank me for helping you turn off Bryce so completely and make Dan happy, By the way, where is Dan? Is he in your bed?" "You know about Dan?" Brenda exclaimed. "Well, yes," answered Grace. "I think most of the free world knows about Dan. You've been sleeping with him for months now. He promised you that he would have sex with you in your marital bed every time you had sex with Bryce, so you stopped having sex with your own husband. Luckily, Dan was able to fill the void. The pun is intentional." "If Bryce knew, why didn't he say anything? Why did he let Dan and me be together for so long?" Brenda asked, tears streaming down her cheeks. "You are a smart girl. What would most men do if they discovered their wife was cheating?" Grace asked. "He would get very angry and yell at me. Then he probably would have divorced me," Brenda answered as the reality of the situation became clearer. "It sounds something like this. What happens next? Can Bryce and Tim stay here while you move in with Dan?" Grace asked calmly. "I wouldn't move out of my house. I wouldn't mind Tim either. If Bryce wanted a divorce, he would have to move out. He would pay alimony and child support. Tim would have stayed with me," Brenda concluded. "Exactly what Bryce expected," Grace agreed. "Let's say that staying close to Tim and being the best father he could be was his first goal. How could he achieve this goal?" "Because he won't divorce me," Brenda answered quietly. "He stayed here for Tim, not for me. He found out about Dan and me and essentially divorced me, just not legally. We've been living as a divorced couple for months now, haven't we? I was just too damn stupid to realize it. In your defense, I can say that Dan helped you not to notice that your husband left emotionally long ago. I'm just a skinny bitch who showed up after you ruined everything." "I helped Bryce recover," Grace said. "I told Dan it was over between us. I never want to see him again," Brenda said. "Was this after he refused to help his daughter out of a sticky situation last night?" "You didn't have much choice, did you?" Grace asked rhetorically. "Even traitors have some expectation and some restrictions." "Are you and Bryce going to live together now?" Brenda asked, wiping the remaining tears from her eyes. "To be honest, we are quite happy with what we have. Horace and I will return to Los Angeles before school starts in the fall," admitted Grace. "I'd rather he didn't know his mom was having fun with his best friend's dad, if there's anything to be done about it. When it's time for me to leave, I'll probably help Bryce choose a new girlfriend if hell let me. So you see, I didn't steal your husband like other mothers hope to do. We temporarily enjoy each other's company, much the same way you did with Dan." "What if I don't let this continue? He is my husband. You have no right to sleep with him," Brenda insisted. "You gave me this right as soon as you gave yourself to Dan Grant," answered Grace. "It pretty much freed Bryce from any obligations he might have had towards you. He and I are exceptional people. We can trust each other, if you can imagine that. I told Bryce that he couldn't have sex with you or anyone else if he wanted me around," Grace added. "Who knows who else Dan Grant slept with or what diseases he might have had?" Brenda began to cry again as she considered the statement. Could Dan have had sex with someone else on the side? Of course he could. Brenda no longer had any illusions about the kind of man Dan Grant was. She needed to get tested ASAP. "What will happen now?" Brenda asked fearfully. "Let's just continue like this," Grace replied. "I'll stop by and wake Bryce up as often as I can. You continue to work late and avoid him as much as possible. I think this will work just fine. If it ain't broke, don't fix it." "I'm not going to do this," Brenda said categorically. "You're leaving in a few months. I'm going to stay here and show Bryce what a great wife I can be. He won't need your skinny ass." "Except he knows that my skinny ass is loyal to him, while your round ass is out there somewhere waiting to be patted by whoever," Grace retorted. "Basically, I control your sex life, or at least your sex life with Bryce. I won't let him get close to you as long as we're in a relationship. I don't want to risk getting sick, and he doesn't really want it either." "One thing I learned a little too late is that relationships are about so much more than sex," Brenda said with false bravado. "Actually, sex without love or commitment is quite humiliating. I will do what a wife should happily do for her husband while you just have sex with him. Think about it." "Okay," Grace answered. "I thought about that. Let's do it. You cook the guy great lasagna and meatloaf, keep the toilets clean and wash his clothes. I will entertain him in bed as often as I can. Let's see which of us is happier." "Bryce, I have to tell you how ashamed I am and how sorry I am for disrespecting you. "Can you ever forgive me?" Brenda pleaded. "How could he ever trust you again?" Grace asked. "He might forgive you someday, but how the hell are you going to win back his trust? This has always been the obstacle that traitors face. I suggest you try to enjoy the next few months while you're still Bryce's wife, at least in name. Realize what you sacrificed for mediocre sex and learn from it. Bryce doesn't want to destroy his family while Tim is in school. That will give you about 9 months after I leave to do everything possible to get him back. When Tim graduates, Bryce will probably kick your ass to the curb," Scamp predicted. "Bryce, why do you let her speak for you?" asked Brenda. "I'm not just his mistress. I'm his best friend," answered Grace. "While you were whispering sweet nothings in Dan's ear, Bryce and I were having our own conversation in bed. I promised to deal with this particular situation if and when it finally arises. He promised to thank me as soon as I did. Could you leave us alone now?" Brenda left, tears streaming down her face, feeling more confused and defeated than ever. Months passed, and Grace's prediction proved true. She and Bryce continued their relationship, keeping things discreet. Brenda tried her best to reconnect with Bryce, cooking meals, keeping the house immaculate, and even trying to engage in meaningful conversations, but Bryce remained distant. He appreciated her efforts but couldn't forget her betrayal. Tim noticed the tension but didn't understand the full extent of the situation. He was focused on school and baseball, enjoying the time he spent with his father and friends. Bryce made sure to be there for him, attending every game and practice. As the school year came to an end, Grace and Horace prepared to move back to Los Angeles. On her last day in town, Grace and Bryce shared a heartfelt goodbye. "Thank you for everything, Bryce," Grace said. "You've been a wonderful friend and mentor to Horace. I hope you find happiness, whether it's with Brenda or someone else." "Thank you, Minx," Bryce replied. "You've helped me more than you know. Take care of yourself and Horace." With Grace gone, Brenda knew she had one last chance to make things right with Bryce. She approached him one evening, her eyes filled with determination. "Bryce, I know I've made terrible mistakes, but I want to make things right. I want to be the wife you deserve. Please give me another chance." Bryce looked at Brenda, seeing the sincerity in her eyes. He sighed, the weight of the past year heavy on his shoulders. "Brenda, I appreciate your efforts, but trust isn't something that can be easily rebuilt. It's going to take time. I'm willing to try for Tim's sake and for ours, but you need to understand that things won't be the same." "I understand," Brenda replied, her voice trembling. "I'll do whatever it takes." Over the next few months, Bryce and Brenda worked on their relationship, attending counseling and slowly rebuilding the trust that had been shattered. It was a long and difficult process, but they both knew it was worth it for their family. Tim graduated from high school and was accepted into a good college. Bryce and Brenda stood together, proud of their son's achievements. As they watched him walk across the stage to receive his diploma, they knew that despite the hardships, they had managed to keep their family intact. Bryce and Brenda's relationship was far from perfect, but they were committed to making it work. They had learned the hard way that love, trust, and commitment were the foundations of a strong marriage, and with time, they hoped to build a future together, stronger than ever before. Thanks for watching. What would you do if you were in Bryce's shoes, dealing with betrayal and trying to rebuild trust? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more dramatic stories of love, betrayal, and redemption. See you in the next video. As I've gotten older, I've started to see life differently than I did 12 or 20 years ago. You start to value each day knowing that the time you have is slowly slipping away. Time itself seems to fly by. When you're a kid, time drags on and every summer feels like it lasts forever. But now in the twilight years, it whizzes by like an express train. Life can be compared to a train ride. When you're born, you find your place in a carriage. The train starts slowly but picks up speed, eventually racing along. The scenery changes, people come and go from the carriage. Some stay for a long time while others leave at their stations. Some are lucky enough to have fellow travelers accompany them to the end. I'm now 61 years old, and my train is nearing the end of its journey. At this age, you can help but become a philosopher. I was lucky with my fellow passengers. I met Linda, my wife, at a cafe where I went with my friend. Linda was with another guy at the time and didn't pay much attention to me initially. I don't remember what we were celebrating that night, but going home alone was not an option, so I invited my neighbor from the stairwell. At that time, I was a third-year student at the Engineering Institute, while Linda had just finished school. The evening passed quickly, and we all dispersed to our respective homes or friends' places, but the beautiful brunette had found a place in my heart. Fate cannot be fooled. I met Linda again sometime later, and eventually we became a couple. We got married during my 4th year of college. A year later, a son, Michael, was born, and after another 6 years, a daughter, Jessica, appeared. After graduating from college, I joined the Army. 2 years later, I applied for an extension and continued to serve. Military service didn't bother me. I made progress and rapidly climbed the career ladder. I served in various places, the Middle East, Germany, Africa, and eventually I completed my service in the Florida region. I reached the rank of colonel and was honorably discharged from my position as the Army's chief of intelligence. I adapted quickly to civilian life. My initial profession was in demand, and I started working in manufacturing. Within 3 years, I became the chief mechanic, and 2 years later, I became the chief engineer at the Techno Master factory. My experience in leadership roles didn't go to waste. Until recently, I continued working at the factory while Linda worked at the regional hospital. She, too, had advanced in her career and held the position of the head nurse. Our children grew up. Our son graduated from the Ministry of Internal Affairs Institute, and our daughter from the university. They started their own families. By this time, I had reached retirement age and finally retired. Linda, on the other hand, continued to work even though she was already eligible for retirement. I must say I was lucky with my wife in every sense. She was one of those women who aged very slowly. In her years, she looked significantly younger than her age, and men still cast admiring glances her way. She always dressed tastefully with minimal makeup, a stylish haircut, and enticing curves, everything that makes a woman attractive to the opposite sex. I won't say I fared worse, but men age faster. The service, injuries, and other factors took their toll. All of this didn't make us any better or younger, but I couldn't be called a withered stump either. Out of habit from my Army days, I woke up early, went for a run, did some calisthenics as much as I could manage. I may have put on a little weight, but overall, I still had a decent appearance. Additionally, I played the guitar and accordion quite well. What else did I need to feel happy? Having lived with one woman for so many years, I had no doubts that I would spend my whole life with her. Throughout our life together, there was no one better for me than her. I looked at other women, of course. A man is a man after all, but I never strayed. My conscience is clear. Yes, there were times when I came home drunk. The service dictated its rules, but I never caused a scene or harmed my family. We had our disagreements, as any couple does, but we always found a compromise and quickly made amends. Yes, that's how it was until recently. My Linda began to change. It seemed to have started long before, but I, cocooned in my happy life, simply didn't notice these changes, or perhaps I didn't want to notice them. Everything in my life was satisfactory. Meanwhile, my wife was altering, even in appearance. Her heels grew higher, skirts and dresses became shorter, her hairstyles became more glamorous, and makeup became more pronounced. I attributed it all to age. What a fool I was, believing that my wife was clinging to her youth and trying to delay the onset of maturity. Even to myself, I condescendingly joked, thinking, VDJ, look at her, acting like a young girl. DJKJ. But as it turned out, she was quite serious about it. She started attending various professional development courses just before retirement, going to seminars and taking on night shifts. But my head was not yet itching from butting horns, as they say. The husband is always the last to know. Everything for me began and ended at the New Year's corporate party we were supposed to attend together. I'm not particularly fond of those glamorous gatherings, but this time Linda persuaded me. As it later turned out, it wasn't without reason. I can't remember why, but I was running late. I called my wife, apologized, and promised to arrive shortly. We were celebrating outside the city at a recreation center. Rooms were even booked for those who wanted to continue the party until morning. I arrived in my car and had no intention of drinking. I do enjoy a drink. I like the process, unhurried and deliberate, with a cigar, quiet conversation with an intellectual companion, sipping alcohol, and without the deafening music and hysterical female laughter that had never appealed to me. I parked my car and climbed the snow-covered steps. Warmth and a scent of food hit me in the face. People were having a great time. I had missed the official part and entered right into the heart of the celebration. I scanned the room. Linda was nowhere to be seen. I spotted her colleague, someone I knew slightly, and made my way toward her, politely weaving my way through the dancers. Linda's friend, Marina, was energetically dancing with some red-faced fellow resembling a mushroom. I stood to the side, not to interrupt, and when their lively dance ended, I gently touched the woman on the shoulder. "VDNJ, hello, where's Linda, DJK?" I asked very politely. "VDNGM running late and I can't seem to find her." "GKJ." I noticed Marina's eyes darting around nervously. She was desperately searching for an answer to my question. Finally, she produced an answer. "VDNJ, she was just here. Maybe she went to the ladies' room." DJKJ Marina was clearly lying and quite clumsily. I tensed up. Something was amiss here, and this amiss applied entirely to my wife. I turned away without listening to Marina further and headed toward the exit. Fate seemed to be guiding me in the right direction. Leaving the noisy hall behind, I ascended to the second floor and slowly walked down the corridor. I had never been to this recreation center and had no idea how things were arranged here, so I walked wherever my eyes took me. "VJ, sir, are you looking for someone?" GKGA, a young woman in a white apron, likely a staff member, asked. She held a stack of towels. "VJ and Jim, looking for my wife." "I'm running a bit late." "DJKJ," I replied with a polite smile. "VJ&JI was away for about half an hour, but I think someone is in room 204. VDJKJ, the corridor attendant said, smiling and nodding toward the occupied room. "VJ&J, may I take a look?" "DJKJ," I asked. The woman shrugged. "VDJNJ, go ahead." "DJKJ." I approached the designated room and cautiously turned the handle. The door yielded and I slipped inside, trying not to make any noise. Sounds were coming from the room. The door was slightly ajar and I saw the whole scene. Linda was on her knees in front of a man I didn't recognize, diligently moving her head. The stranger tilted his head back, closing his eyes, surrendering entirely to the pleasure he was receiving. They were both dressed, except for the man's lower trousers, which he was holding up with one hand. They were so engrossed in their activity that they didn't notice anything around them. I stood there like a statue, not doing anything. 20 years ago, I might have reacted with anger and thrown them both out of the window without a second thought, no need for words. But now all I felt was a deep sense of shame and disgust. I was ashamed of my wife, whom I had loved all my life and who was betraying me in cold blood and cynicism. At her age, to be on her knees. I banged on the door with a deliberate loud bang. The last thing I saw was the man frantically tugging at his fly and pinning his dignity. I heard him yelp in pain. I left the room and walked quickly down the hall. The fact that I was no longer married was clear, but I could not calculate my further actions. One thing I knew for sure: I had to get out of here. I was afraid that in anger I could make a mess of things. Linda, smacking her lips, stood before my eyes. I couldn't even find the words to call her names. Everything I knew was too weak of a characterization for my ex-wife. I went back to the hall and sat down at the first table I could find. My legs wouldn't hold up. I decided to recover a little and leave. A few minutes later, Linda's lover came into the hall, wrinkled with pain, and landed not far from me. I am not an innocent girl and have more than one extreme situation under my belt. Gradually, my body began to withdraw little by little, and my head was clearing up. I accepted the situation and began to calculate options for behavior. There was a desire to smash his face, but I dismissed that thought. Nothing would change from the fact that I was going to smash his scoreboard. They'll call the police and send me to jail, and they'll gloat. Well, maybe I'll take my breath away, but that's all. It was difficult for me to understand Linda's behavior and her reaction to the fight, but usually wives are always on the side of their lovers. That they were lovers, I had no doubt. There was another important factor. Linda did everything voluntarily. It's not constructive to have a showdown with Linda for the public's amusement. All sympathy would be on the poor woman's side, so she got a little naughty. Who doesn't? At that moment, Linda appeared in the hall. She absent-mindedly looked around the room. Marina immediately jumped up to her, grabbed her by the elbow, and began to say something with heat in her ear. Linda saw me. She hesitantly moved in my direction, but I stood up and walked to the exit. That's okay. Her lover will give her a ride home, or wherever they want her to go. Having thrown on my coat, I descended the stairs and settled behind the wheel. I started the engine and pulled out of the parking lot. Linda rushed onto the porch and began to shout something, but the engine was roaring and the windows were closed. So the woman was yelling in vain. I hadn't even exited the gate when my mobile phone came to life. My beloved lit up on the screen. I felt like throwing up. I declined the call, but Linda continued to call again and again. Finally, I simply turned off the phone. I didn't want to go home and stop to spend the night at a roadside motel. Just the thought of seeing her with her painted lips made me nauseous. No more confrontations, what's done is done. I didn't know how much time the Lord had left for me, but I was determined to spend it without Linda. No compromises, she had willingly done it all, and from what I could see, with youthful enthusiasm. I didn't want to waste my remaining years on this mess. I tried to reassure myself. You're not the first, and you won't be the last. I'll get through somehow. The kids are grown up. Grandchildren, well, let them figure that out for themselves. One thing was both amusing and embarrassing. At such a mature age, your wife cheats on you. Who could I tell, lest I become a laughingstock? I arrived home in the morning. Linda was busy in the kitchen, but upon hearing me, she came out into the hallway. VDJNJ Mike, have you gone mad? Where have you been? I was worried sick. I got the kids up, called the police and the morgues. What happened? Why did you run off in front of my colleagues? GKJ, Linda bombarded me with so many questions that for some reason it made me laugh. It seemed she had no idea that I had seen her playing the flute with a stranger, and all I had seen were her lips. VDJ and your boss, John, really wanted to meet you, and you ran away. A respectable man, and you're acting like a kid. Has the rein slipped from your hands? DKJ, Linda persisted. Vijay, aren't you ashamed? DJK, yes. The best defense is a good offense. Honestly, I felt like punching her lying mouth to shut it forever, but I held back. I was curious about what would happen next. I pushed Linda aside, walked into the kitchen, and poured myself some coffee. I looked out of the window. The day promised to be sunny. The city was slowly waking up from its nightly slumber. The lights and colorful garlands were being extinguished, gathering strength for New Year's Eve. The streets filled with perpetually rushing cars. The last day of the old year was beginning. Vijay, you even listening to me? GKJ, Linda's voice brought me back to reality. Vijay, I want to invite him to our New Year's celebration. DJKJ, Vijay, who is him? GKJ, I asked, not understanding. VDJ, your boss. His wife passed away 6 months ago, and he's alone now. Let him welcome the new year with us. VJKJ, Linda beamed like a brass samovar. VDJ, New Year's is a family holiday. We'll have children and grandchildren. Why on earth do we need your boss here? DJK, I decided to tease her a bit. There couldn't possibly be any talk of celebrating the new year together. VDN, don't be selfish. He's going through a tough time right now, and he needs our support. DJJJ, Linda couldn't calm down. VJ, why don't his kids invite him? GK. My phrase sounded ambiguous. Suddenly I understood. Her lover was none other than the head doctor, John. What a scoundrel. She had no shame bringing him into my home like this. She wasn't afraid of me or the children. What if the kids know about her adventures? My heart sank at the thought. Were those even my kids? After what I had seen, I had legitimate doubts. Maybe she had been fooling around behind my back all her life. This thought made me feel sick. In the morning, my son Michael called a meeting. The subordinates were sluggishly reporting uncompleted cases, hovering in their thoughts somewhere far away from the chief's office. Michael took off his glasses and looked at Major Dowell with his myopic eyes. VDANJ, what do we have on unidentified corpses? DAKJ, VJNJ, we have information on all but the November one, Colonel. VDJKJJ, the major reported cheerfully. VDJNJ, well, the one from the accident on the ring road. Without documents, everything was burned in the accident. The gas tank exploded. The body was badly burned except for the ring. There's no sign of him. It's an expensive ring, platinum, with a diamond. He must have been rich, Igor. DAKG, whoa. Michael looked at Captain Max with narrowed eyes. VDJ, no one contacted you about a missing person? GKG, VDDJ, no one, Colonel? Maybe he was a stranger and got into the car by accident. VDJKJ? Max lowered his eyes as if he thought he had something to do with the accident. VDJGNJI, see. Everyone's thoughts are on the upcoming New Year's Eve. Well, we'll get together after the weekend, write a report, and close the case. Dismissed. Oh, DJK. The colonel leaned back in his chair. The last day of the passing year was just beginning and did not bode well. VDJNJ, Colonel, may I ask a question? DAKJ. Major Dowell suddenly raised his voice. Michael looked questioningly at his colleague. VDJNJ, can we let people go home early? Today is New Year's Eve after all. DJK. Everyone froze and did not hurry to leave the office of the chief. Michael grinned to himself. Caught them, devils. VJNJ, all right. Work today until 4 p.m., then only on duty. Happy New Year. DJKJ? The colonel smiled. He sat for a while, gathering his thoughts, then dialed his home number. His wife answered at once. VGNJ Nancy, what time did my mother invite us? DJKJ. He patted the pockets of his tunic in search of cigarettes. VDJNJ's usual at 9 o'clock in the evening. She asked us to bring mineral water and a cake. DJK Nancy was doing something in the kitchen and Michael could hear the clinking of dishes. VJNGI dropped off the cake yesterday, didn't I? JKJJ, he was surprised. VJNG, why the second one? DJKJ, VVJN, there will be someone else there besides us, VJKJ answered his wife. VDJNJI, wonder who? VDJKJ. Michael's mood finally soured. Usually only the closest people gathered for New Year's Eve. His father and his mother, he and his wife and his sister and her husband. Who else was invited and why? VGNJ, okay, I'll be there after 4 o'clock. I'll buy everything. Bye. JKJ, the colonel sighed. Usually at these gatherings, he and his father talked about various topics. They couldn't see each other much and everyday life work sucked them in. But on New Year's Eve, when everyone tired of the fun went to bed, he and his father talked until the morning. Since some time, these night conversations on New Year's Eve became, as it were, a ritual of their lives. Michael loved his father more than his mother. He was even afraid to admit it to himself. All his childhood he spent next to his father in the soldiers' barracks. His father even took him on training exercises, much to his mother's displeasure. He joined the police force on his father's advice. Michael told his father about his girlfriend before he told his mother. Putting out his cigarette, the colonel dialed his father's number. Strange, his cell phone was off. He dialed his mother. She answered quickly. VDJ, Mom, Happy New Year. I can't reach Dad. DKJ. Michael sensed that his mother was in a bad mood. He didn't ask her about it. There was no telling what might have happened. VDJNG, don't know, VDJKJ, his mother answered uncertainly. VJNJH had gone somewhere in the morning. DJKJ, VJ Nancy said that you invited someone else for New Year's Eve. DJKJ, Michael leaned back in his chair. VJNJ will be my boss, Arthur. His wife died recently and we've decided to support him. DJKJ, his mother spoke in a strange, unfamiliar voice. VDJNG, his wife died recently, and we've decided to support him, VDJK, his mother mumbled. VJNJU, okay, he'll be there after 4 o'clock. He'll buy everything. Bye. DJKJ. The colonel sighed. After the conversation with his mother, Michael left an unpleasant residue. He pressed the selector and called his deputy. Gradually, his work distracted him from unpleasant thoughts. At 4:30, Michael arrived home. Having rested after work, he huddled with his wife in the kitchen, then called his children, congratulated them on New Year's Eve, and began to get ready for a visit. At exactly 9 o'clock in the evening, Michael and Nancy arrived at his parents' apartment. The door was opened by his sister. VDNJ, come in. We're a little early this time, VDJKJ. Julia kissed her brother's neck and hugged Nancy. Her mother came out of the back of the apartment. VJNJ, hello, son. DAKJA, she hugged Michael. It seemed to him for a moment that his mother had been crying not long ago. Strange, she and his father rarely quarreled. VDJNJ, I don't see Dad, VJJKJ, Michael said in a deliberately cheerful voice, trying to see his father's silhouette in the depths of the hallway. VDJNJH, he will be here later. DJKJ, stuttered the mother. VDJNJ, come in. DAKJ. Nancy and Julia went into the kitchen, while Michael entered the living room and stopped in surprise at the doorway. At the New Year's table, where his father usually sat, there was an unfamiliar man. For a while they silently stared at each other. VDJNJ, meet my son. This is Arthur. Arthur, meet my eldest son, Michael, VDJKJ, his mother said in an overly sweet voice. Michael looked around. He had never seen his mother like this before. The man stood up and extended his hand. The women and Julia's husband, David, entered the room. Everyone started taking their seats at the table. Michael initially thought that Arthur would move from his father's place, but he remained at the head of the table. VJ and Arthur, pour the drinks. What does everyone want? DJKJ, his mother chirped and began serving salad to the guest. VJJ, Mom, where's Dad? After all, shouldn't we wait for him? DJJ, Michael asked with bewilderment, not understanding what was happening. VJNJare, we not waiting for him. Dad should be coming, VJKJ, Julia declared loudly. VJNJ, well, start without him. DKJ, drinks were poured, and everyone picked up their glasses. VJNJ, propose a toast to our acquaintance, VJKJJ. Arthur unexpectedly spoke up. Everyone drank except Michael. He placed his glass on the table and looked intently at his mother. VJNJ, Mom, what's going on? Where's Dad, and why is this man making the first toast? JK. Michael spoke slowly, enunciating each word. His mother blushed and for some reason glanced at her daughter. VJNJ didn't want to tell you, VJKJ, Julia began. VDJNJ, but Dad had a fight with Mom, got angry and left. We don't know where he is and his phone is turned off. DJKJ, VJNJ, Mom, is that true? DJK, Michael shifted his gaze to his mother. VDJNJ, children, your father got something into his head. He said he's going to divorce me after the New Year holidays. DJKJ. His mother wiped away tears with a napkin. VJNJ, Edward, let your parents sort it out themselves. DJKJ, Nancy interjected. VDJNJ, after all, it's still New Year's. DJKJ, VJNJ, what do you mean got angry? Has your husband, after all? VJKJ, Michael felt his anger rising. VJNJ, Mom, you're not telling me something. GJKJ, VDJNJ, Michael, don't ruin our holiday. VJKJJ, his sister chimed in. VJN, Dad won't disappear. Hell come back. DJKJJ, Michael sensed the thinly veiled contempt in Julia's words directed at their father. He stood up. VDJNJ, I don't know what's going on with you, but I believe that without Dad, it's not a holiday. DJKJ? He turned to his wife, VDNJ Nancy, let's go. GKJ, VGNJ, Michael, wait. It's not nice. What will our guests think? DJKJ, his mother pleaded with folded hands. Arthur sat in silence, pretending that these family disputes didn't concern him. But Michael had already stepped into the corridor and was helping his wife put on her coat. Julia joined their mother. VJNJ, you've ruined everything. DJKJ, she hissed angrily. VDJNG, you're just like Dad. You don't want to understand anything. GKJ Michael didn't understand what he had ruined, but he knew one thing for sure. You couldn't celebrate the new year without your father. I knew that Linda would resist with all her might, but she wouldn't vacate the apartment quickly, at least because she had nowhere else to go. Perhaps to her lover's place, but even that wasn't certain. I needed to think about where to stay for the first while. I had a house in the village left to me by my grandmother. However, I hadn't been there in a long time, and its condition was uncertain. It might have fallen into disrepair without proper upkeep. There was only one way to find out: rent a place for a couple of weeks and deal with problems as they arose. I parked and started browsing apartment listings on my phone. Money wasn't an issue, so I didn't dwell on the prices. I considered calling the kids, but then I thought it would be best not to upset them just before the New Year's holidays. Linda had stirred up this mess. She could deal with it herself. In any case, the kids would eventually find out what had happened, and how they'd take it was up to them. Besides, I felt embarrassed about talking to the kids. Just think about it, their old folks were getting divorced. Well, not exactly old folks, but still. However, it didn't seem like Linda was bothered by such trivial matters. She had found love, even if it was at a mature age. There was nothing to be done about it. Why fight for the family? And for what? Especially when it seemed like there was no family left. Finding an apartment wasn't too difficult. I found a suitable option and called the landlord. Within an hour, I was heading up to the third floor of a 5-story brick building located almost in the city center. The 2-bedroom apartment turned out to be cozy and warm. I paid for 2 weeks up front, promised not to host any parties, and received a set of keys. After taking a shower, I sat down to think about what to do next. Honestly, I couldn't come up with any ideas. My mind was blank. I spent some time just sitting in the apartment and then decided I needed to occupy myself with something. After all, our problems usually arise from idleness. Maybe I should go to the village and check out Grandma's old house. A mischievous thought crossed my mind. Why not? There was nothing to do in the city, and the prospects for celebrating the new year were unclear. The phone was disconnected anyway, and they would probably find out about everything sooner or later. How they would take it was their business, and it wasn't the most dignified thing to deal with in my old age. Well, not exactly old age, but still. Although it didn't seem like Linda was too concerned about such matters, she had found love, even if it was at a mature age. There was nothing to be done about it. Should I fight for the family? Why and for what? Especially when it seemed like there was no family left. So it was decided. I changed into winter camouflage, stopped by a store to buy some groceries for the road, and decided to grab a couple of bottles of vodka as well. You never know. They might come in handy. In the car, I had a good hunting knife made from a German bayonet from the war. Those old blades were well made. Unlike modern bayonets, they were sturdy and reliable. I didn't have any other weapons. And what for anyway? The village wasn't far, about 120 kilometers or so. I turned on the GPS, fueled up, and half an hour later, I was on the ring road. I drove along the highway, glancing around. The winter sun was shining brightly, but the approach of evening was palpable. Winter days were short, and it was already December, the gloomiest month of the year. Along the way, I picked up a hitchhiker. I usually didn't like giving rides to strangers, but today, after the morning's nerve-wracking encounter, I felt like exchanging a few words with someone. When I saw an old man by the side of the road, I braked and stopped. "Where are you headed?" I asked, rolling down the passenger side window. "Just down the highway, about 5 kilometers to the junction," the old man replied in a surprisingly spry voice. I opened the door, inviting him in. We drove in silence for a while before the old man broke it. "Are you going far?" he asked. "I'm going to Crestwood. My grandmother used to live there. After she passed away, the house remained. I'm thinking of taking a look at it," I explained. "I see. You're not familiar with the place, are you?" The old man grinned. "No, not really," I replied. "Those aren't good lands," he warned. "Keep an eye out. Are you baptized?" "Yes, I am baptized, and I even have a cross." I felt the need to justify myself. "That's good," the old man said with another grin. For some reason, he switched to a more formal tone. We didn't say much more and soon reached the junction. The highway continued straight ahead while a snow-covered dirt road branched off to the right. "The junction is here," the old man pointed towards the forest. "You're going right, and I'm going straight. It's about 20 kilometers to the city from here." We shook hands, and the old man stepped out. I turned right, heading towards the village. I wasn't in a hurry, and after about half an hour the road disappeared into a dense forest. Twilight was slowly descending, and the trees lining the road cast long shadows, making the dusk even denser. The road appeared abandoned, and it seemed like no one had driven on it for a long time. There were no traces of tractors or cars. My SUV was plowing through the loose, not-too-deep snow at a steady third gear, leaving tire tread marks behind. The temperature had dropped. I checked the outside temperature sensor, minus 22 degrees Celsius. Well, it was understandable. It was getting closer to evening, but I intended to reach my destination before dark. A couple of kilometers later, I felt the need to use the restroom. I pulled over and got out of the car. It was unusually quiet, but for some reason this silence felt eerie. Well, the old man had scared me a bit. I even shivered. Suddenly I felt like someone was watching me from behind. I don't know where that feeling came from, but a shiver ran down my spine. I had been to war, and I had learned to trust my instincts. Moreover, my intuition had saved my life on several occasions. After finishing quickly, I jumped back into the car and pulled away from the spot. Not in a hurry, though. Maybe it was just my imagination running wild. The old man had probably planted these thoughts in my head. Just in case, I retrieved a knife from the glove compartment and a wrench from under the seat. I turned on the headlights and looked around attentively. It would be completely dark soon, and I couldn't risk not identifying the source of danger. There was one hope, that the night would be bright. After all, tonight was the full moon. Suddenly, out of the corner of my eye, I caught movement. A vague, dark figure flashed on the right. Something or someone had stopped lurking and was now moving parallel to the road through the forest. I increased my speed, risking driving off the road. Then I saw that something large and black had emerged from the trees and was now openly chasing me. It seemed like I was being hunted. I increased the speed. Tree trunks of fir and pine trees flickered by on either side. The car's headlights snatched snow-covered bushes from the darkness. On the turns, I glanced in the rearview mirror. Something enormous, merging with the night's darkness, was relentlessly pursuing me. Suddenly, the car skidded. I turned the steering wheel, trying to stabilize the vehicle, but the car was already flying into a snowdrift. Impact. I struck the steering wheel with my face at full force. Even the seatbelts didn't help. Why didn't the airbag deploy, I thought, losing consciousness. I woke up from jolts. Someone was rocking the car. I tried to see what was happening, but the windows were fogged up, and all I could make out was a huge, blurry silhouette. The creature didn't stop its efforts to reach me. I pulled out a knife and pushed open the door. Whoever or whatever it was, I intended to defend my life. To my surprise, the door wasn't jammed, and I managed to get out of the car. The moonlight illuminated the surroundings, but the car was still under the trees, and I couldn't see the attacker clearly. I tried to circle the car, but I slipped and fell, hitting my head on the bumper. The knife slipped out of my hand and into the snowdrift. It's over, I thought as I saw the creature lunging at me with its gaping mouth and huge teeth. The beast stuck out its tongue and began licking my face. I heard a whimper. Was it a dog? An enormous black, shaggy dog. I tried to stand, but the dog held me down with its front paws on my shoulders. Finally, I managed to break free. The huge dog wagged its tail wildly, still attempting to lick my face. Hysterical laughter overcame me. Almost automatically, I searched for the fallen knife, got back into the car, and tried to start the engine. The car started without any issues. I engaged the four-wheel drive and slowly drove onto the road. Without turning off the engine, I rummaged in my bag, pulled out a piece of sausage, and handed it to the beast. "VDNJ, here you go, buddy. VJKJ. You should have seen how it ate. The sausage disappeared instantly into its jaws, Hungry eyes stared at me questioningly. I gave it the whole sausage and half a loaf of bread. It all vanished in an instant. It was clear that the dog hadn't eaten in a long time. After swallowing the food, it wagged its tail. What was I going to do with it? I stood by the car for a moment, then opened the rear door. The dog didn't move. I understood. I opened the front door and the dog quickly climbed onto the front seat, resting its front paws on the car floor. I sat down beside it. "VJ, all right, let's go. DJ KJ." I turned on the radio and slowly drove forward, paying close attention to the road. It was surrounded by woods on all sides, and as I went further, it became narrower. Soon, branches from bushes on the side of the road began to drum against the car. I reached a fork in the road. Which way to turn? They say if you don't know the way, turn left. So I turned left. It was already 5 p.m. and I kept driving down a seemingly endless road. Another fork. I turned left again, almost on autopilot. It seemed like the forest was thinning out. Indeed, on both sides of the road there were snow-covered fields or gardens. The headlights revealed twisted houses in the darkness. It looked like a village. Had I arrived? Soon I was driving down a snow-covered village street. Dark, snow-covered ruins stood around me. No lights in the windows. It seemed like nobody lived here anymore. One of those dead villages. Suddenly my car's engine sputtered and then completely died. The radio went silent too. I turned off the lights, fearing I might drain the battery, and grabbed a flashlight. I zipped up my jacket and got out of the car. It was pitch dark all around. Only vague outlines of houses ahead. Utter silence. No barking dogs, no human chatter, none of the sounds typical of a live village in the evening. Not a single lit window. I turned on my phone. No signal. Who would have doubted it? Just as expected. Wilderness. Then I saw a glimmer of light in the farthest hut, almost at the edge of the forest. I stopped. Could it be that someone lives in my grandmother's house? I released the dog. It approached the door and waited expectantly. I noticed the porch covered in snow. Smoke was coming from the chimney. It had to be someone's home after all. I knocked on the door. After a minute, a bolt was thrown, and the door creaked open. In front of me stood an elderly man in a wolfskin vest worn over a red checkered shirt. Without showing any surprise at my appearance, he made an inviting gesture. "VDJ&J, come on in. Don't freeze outside." "DJ KJ," I let the dog in, closed the door behind me, and stepped inside. An old table pushed against the wall. On it, a kerosene lamp with a burning wick. In the dim light, I saw an old man sitting by the stove, tossing a few logs into the fire. It seemed like he could be the brother of my fellow traveler. They looked so similar. "VDJ Jange, take a seat. Don't stand there, VGKJJ." The old man nodded towards an old armchair opposite the stove. "VJinge, would you like some tea?" DJK, I nodded. The man walked over to the table, poured thick hot tea from a soot-covered aluminum kettle into a chipped porcelain cup, and handed it to me. "VDANJ from herbs. Aromatic, VDJKJ." He extended a full cup to me. I took a sip. It was slightly sweet, with a hint of tang, warming my esophagus and stomach. The dog lay down on the floor not far from the stove and rested its head on its paws. "VDNJ, I have some food in my car. Maybe I should go get it, VJKJ." I tried to stand up. "VJ, don't worry about it. We've had enough tea, VJ." The old man poked the logs with a poker, and a shower of sparks shot up into the stove's vault. "VJ, well, feed your dog as well." "JKJ." I felt so comfortable, as if I had spent half my life in that house. With every sip of tea, my fatigue seemed to fade away, and my worries evaporated somewhere. Everything around me became familiar and homely. "VDJ well, have you warmed up?" "EJKJ." The old man sat down on a stool opposite me. "VDJ&J, the blizzard will be here soon. The snowstorms are not far off. The roads will be impassable." "GHJ." His raspy voice was soothing and at the same time filled with a sense of calm. Suddenly, I wanted to tell a stranger about my life, about my misfortunes, about my wife's betrayal. We sat there for a long time. I spoke, and he listened attentively. Occasionally he nodded in agreement, made thoughtful noises, or stroked his gray beard. I told him everything about my life, about my father, my mother, my wife, and my children. When I finished, we sat in silence for a long while. Then he poured me more tea and took the first sip from his own cup. VJJJ's fate has put you through quite a wringer. You spent your whole life chasing happiness but not down the right path. So here you are, not loved then and not loved now. Only you don't notice it. You've locked yourself in, hidden away like a badger with only your nose poking out. BDJK. The old man took another sip from his cup. VJNJ, look around you, and you'll find your happiness. And remember, if one door closes, look for another nearby, and don't be afraid to open it. DJKJ. His words sounded as if they came from a distance. My eyes grew heavy, and I unknowingly drifted off to sleep. I woke up to the sound of the radio. I was sitting in the car, my head resting on the headrest. My back and legs were stiff. I looked at my watch, 9 o'clock in the morning. So was it all just a dream? The old man, the fragrant tea, the heartfelt conversation, I remembered every word he had said, and the taste of his tea still lingered in my mouth. It couldn't be. But how did I end up in the car? I had no answer to that question. I turned my head to the right. A huge black dog was looking at me with greenish-yellow wolf-like eyes. I needed to give her a name. In my distant childhood, my grandfather had a massive German shepherd named Max. I looked at my passenger again. VJN, let's call her Maxine. DJJK, I patted the dog's neck and turned the ignition key. The engine purred smoothly and peacefully. The car slowly moved along the snow-covered street. I looked around carefully, trying to find that very house where I had spent the night in conversation with the old man. But all I saw along the street were partially collapsed huts, blackened with age. Of course, it was just a dream. Fatigue, worries, and yesterday's troubles had taken their toll. I turned the car around and headed back to the city. I was already in the suburbs when the phone rang. VDJNJ, Dad, where are you? VJKJ, my son's voice was strained. VDJNJ, you all right? DJKA, VDJ and Jim, fine, Michael. I'm in town. DJKJ. I was really ashamed that I had made him worry. VJNJ, where did you spend the night? Tell me the address and I'll come. DJK. I felt relief in my son's voice. I texted him the address and drove to my temporary shelter, trying not to make noise and not to attract the attention of the neighbors. The dog and I quickly went up to the third floor, put the kettle on, and prepared sandwiches. It was going to be a tough conversation with my son. I had already bathed the dog and showered myself when the doorbell rang. I pulled on a jersey, put on jeans, and went to open the door. Michael stood on the doorstep. VDJNG, Dad, Happy New Year. DJK, we hugged. VDJNG, that's not a bad place. VDJKJ, my son was curious about my apartment. VDJNG, who's that? DJK. Michael frowned as Maxine appeared on the threshold of the room. He did not bark at the stranger. Only the corners of his lips lowered threateningly, revealing huge fangs. VDJJ, Maxine, my new friend. I've never had a dog and didn't know what commands to say. I just said the first thing that came to mind, but the dog seemed to understand. She wagged her tail and stepped aside. DJKJ, VJNJ, great. VJKJ, said my son. VJ and Jivi been dreaming of having a dog since I was a kid. Well, Father, you're crazy. DJKJ, soon we were sitting at the coffee table eating breakfast and occasionally feeding Maxine. VDNJ, Dad, what happened between you and Mom? DJKJ, Michael finally asked. I waited for this question and told him everything, what to hide. It wasn't me who pleased Arthur with a prolonged activity. Michael was silent for a long time. It was hard for him to hear such things about his mother. I sat without disturbing my son. I understood his condition perfectly well. The person he idolized, his mother, turned out to be a traitor. His heart was breaking, but he must make his own decision. VJNJ, Michael, VGJK, I began. VJNJ, practically nothing has changed for you. She will still be your mother. After all, it's my problems with her. Everyone has the right to happiness, even the kind your mother chose. DKJ, VJNJ, I must talk to her. VJK. Michael stood up. VJNJ, I want to clarify everything to the very end. DJKJ. My son left. I sat for a while longer and decided to sleep. Today is a day off, so I will be able to file for divorce only tomorrow. I was awakened by a phone call. It was Linda. Well, I'll have to pick up the phone. I can't hide forever. VDJ Mike, DJ KJ. Linda's voice was vibrating with emotion. VJ need to talk. Do not be a boy. The situation needs to be clarified. I had Michael. What did you say to him? Are you trying to break up my son and me? Come home, stop running. DJ KJ. Linda hung up. She's right. Something has to be done. This can't go on much longer. I don't have much time to waste on someone who is essentially a stranger to me. When I entered the apartment, I immediately realized that Linda was not alone. Jessica's fur coat and someone's cashmere coat were hanging on the rack. Could it be that Linda brought her lover home? My heart clenched, but instead of pain, a cold rage started to build inside me. Fine, let's see how things unfold. Linda came out into the corridor. Ginger, you're just in time. Come in, we'll have dinner. She looked at me expectantly, obviously waiting for my reaction to her guest's presence. Without saying anything, I walked into the room. Sitting on my favorite couch was a familiar figure who grinned impudently and looked at me. VJ, meet Mike, this is Arthur. Arthur, meet Mike, my husband, VJK, Linda announced obsequiously. The man stood up and extended his hand to me. I put my hands in my pockets to keep them from trembling. Arthur stood there with his hand outstretched for a while, then shrugged and sat down. Jessica entered the room. VJ Angelo, are you worn out? DJK. She looked at me contemptuously as if I were covered in filth. I noticed that she didn't call me Dad. She spoke to me not as a father but as a stranger. I stared at Linda intently and my wife averted her gaze. Could it be that my worst fears were coming true? I took a seat. VJ and let's have dinner. GJKJ, Linda hurriedly said. VJ and let's get to the point. I didn't come here to eat. You said we were going to have a conversation between us, but you've assembled a whole Congress, VJK. I was getting tired of the charade. VDJ, this conversation concerns all of us, Mike. VDJKJ. Arthur unexpectedly interjected. VJ, it's not as simple as you think. DJKJ, VDJ, Mike, calm down and listen, VDJKJ. Linda pleaded. VJ, we've known Arthur for almost 30 years. We were friends even before I met you. Fate separated us and we met again when I was already married, VDJKJ. Linda began. She hesitated for a moment. VGNG, it's very difficult for me to talk about this, but Jessica is his daughter. DKJ, tears welled up in Linda's eyes. VGANJI was already working at the hospital when Arthur was appointed chief physician. He helped me and I became the head nurse. He always supported me, but I got tired of living a double life. I wanted to tell you everything. BJKK. Linda hesitated again. VDJNJ, but I don't want to lose you. We've been together for over 40 years and you've become like family to me. But I can't sever ties with Arthur either, especially since we have a daughter together. Mike, let's act constructively. Nothing will change in our relationship. I still love you the same way, and I'll only be with Arthur 2 days a week. You won't even notice. Everything will remain the same between us. DJKJ. I sat there stunned. I hadn't expected this turn of events. Linda's audacity even took my breath away. Does she seriously think you'll agree to share her with this smirking scoundrel? 3 pairs of eyes looked at me questioningly. Then Arthur began to speak. VJNJI, sleep with Linda, your wife. You need to accept it one way or another. She's already mine, especially since she wants it herself. DJKJ. He looked at the blushing Linda. VJNGV prepared some documents. This is a divorce petition to the court. You see, your wife has already signed it. This is a court order giving you 24 hours to vacate this apartment, even though it's technically in your name. This is a statement to the police and the prosecutor's office about domestic violence. You, it turns out, are a family tyrant and an alcoholic who regularly beats his wife. Be aware there are witnesses. JJKJ. He gave a meaningful look to Jessica. He rustled some paper and continued. VJ, and do you understand where this is headed? It'll bury you in lawsuits that you won't be able to fight back against. You'll surrender eventually when you're left penniless and can't even afford the worst lawyer in the world. And you know what? I'll be sleeping with Linda all this time. Yes, you raised my daughter, but where will you go? DJJ Arthur demonstratively embraced Jessica. My heart ached. There was no denying the wickedness and cruelty of my own daughter. VDJ, so let's just maintain the status quo. Let's leave everything as it is. I'll live with Linda on weekends, and you can be with her the rest of the days if she wants, of course. Just like it has been for the past 6 months. Why stir the waters and agitate everyone around us? Linda has made you a reasonable offer. DJKJ. I listened to his monologue without uttering a word. Let's face it, if you were the one she needed, I wouldn't be here right now, would I? Just accept it and agree with your wife. I felt the anger coursing through my veins, gradually infiltrating my brain. I was only afraid of one thing, that I might lose control of myself and then something irreversible might happen. Linda's lover grinned triumphantly, apparently not noticing the transformation that had come over me. I stood up. VD&G, they heard you? DJKJ, I said through gritted teeth. The rage was boiling in my throat. I took a step towards Arthur, who had also risen from the couch. Without any warning, like in a fight, I struck him in the jaw with my right hand. There was a distinct sound of a bone breaking, and the knocked-out teeth rolled across the floor. Her lover fell to the floor, a look of utter amazement on his damaged face. I lifted him by the collar and delivered another blow. Arthur doubled over, then fell to the ground, whimpering. Someone behind me squealed. I turned around and saw Linda and Jessica frozen in horror. They had never seen me like this before. VDJ&J, you probably don't know me well despite all these years together, VJKJ, I said, glaring at Linda with venom in my eyes. VJ and Jill never share my woman with a stupid idiot who thinks he's the lord of the world just because he once mistook 2 cherries for steel balls. Maybe you want to call the police? Go ahead. They might arrest me or maybe not. Perhaps they'll release me on bail. Then we'll have another conversation, but with graver consequences. DJK, I continued to stare at Linda with a snake-like gaze. VDA&J, you should be prepared for anything when you sleep with another man's wife, VDJK, I added, kicking Arthur on the floor. VD and Jill'll be back tomorrow, and God forbid I find you here. DJKJ. I stepped over the fallen lover on the floor and left the apartment. The only thing I regretted was that I hadn't crushed his balls. I drove down the dimly lit street. I was starting to let go, but the rage was still in my throat. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't have banged up my wife's lover. He told me the truth. VDJ, and if you were the one she wanted, I wouldn't be here right now. BJKJ, according to him. I'm not what my wife needed. I wonder how long. Judging by the daughter they have in common, it's been 30 years. Jessica, I loved her as much as my son. And now this, not my daughter. How quickly she changed her shoes. I remembered her cold, indifferent eyes full of unconcealed contempt. Speech, well, a little easier from the fact that Michael is my son. Although anything can happen. I won't be surprised at anything. It was snowing. The road was quickly powdered, and I slowed down so that the car wouldn't skid. Suddenly, out of the corner of my eye, I saw a hunched figure rush under the wheels of my car from the snowdrift on the right. I sharply pressed the brake pedal, simultaneously turning the steering wheel. The car spun around and its left side hit a snowdrift over the curb. The engine stalled. I sat still for a while, wondering what had happened. There was no impact, so I didn't hit anyone. That's all I needed right now. I opened the door and pulled myself between the car and the snowdrift. There was a woman lying in the roadway. Her bare feet were sticking out from under her coat, wearing men's shoes. A sportswoman in such a frost with bare feet. I had a bad thought. I helped the woman up. VJ and Jara, you all right? Are you hurt anywhere? DJKJ, I tried to look into her eyes. VJ and G, let me take you to the hospital. DJK. The woman twitched weakly and tried to pull herself out of my arms. VJ and G, there's nothing wrong with me. Let me go. DJKJ. Only now did I realize that she was quite young and pretty, but not well groomed. Messy hair, scared eyes. It looked like she'd run away from someone, and that someone was chasing her. As if to confirm my thoughts, a man shouted at me. Vijay and Jana, where are you? You better come back. DJ KJ. I saw a big man climbing over the snowdrift. DJ and Ja, there you are. You got a boyfriend already? DJ KJ. A man in his 30s sliding his soles on the ice covered with snow, briskly headed in my direction. Vijay, now I'm going to beat you, you freaks. DJJ looks like the guy didn't have enough words to express his indignation at his woman's behavior. Not enough vocabulary. The woman shrieked and broke away from me, tried to run away, but slipped and fell on the road. The man was almost to me. He hadn't yet decided who to start reprisals with. He stopped for a moment and rushed to the fallen woman. It's the worst thing in the world to get involved in someone else's family disputes. I didn't want to be the last one in this quarrel, so I shrugged my shoulders and went to the car. Behind me, I heard a thud and a woman's sounds. I turned around. The unknown Anna was lying on the ice, picking up her knees and covering her face with her hands. The man was kicking her puny body with all his might. The woman didn't scream, only sounded long hoarse sounds. I came back and pushed the man away. "Vivi Jane, stop it! You'll kill her, you fool! JK?" The guy turned back to me. "Vidi Jane Ja, lover boy! JKJJJ!" He punched me in the nose. I felt blood running down my lips. The Terminator decided to build on his success, and I saw another fist flying towards my face. I batted my hand away and hit his forehead with my open palm, not hard. The man froze for a moment, then fell soundlessly onto his back and fell silent. I helped the woman up. "VJ, should we go to the hospital?" DJK, I asked again, supporting her under my arm. "VDJ, no, don't. VJKJ." The woman took a couple of steps and fell. I barely had time to pick her up. I carried her in my arms to the emergency room of the hospital and handed her over to the doctors. I told the doctor on duty what happened, but I guess he didn't believe me. I left my cell phone and left. Late at night, Michael called me. "VDJ and your dad, I was talking to Mom. That guy, Arthur, was with her. He was sitting next to her, and she was holding his hand." Can you imagine? Holding his hand. She told me everything about Jessica not being your daughter, and that she's been sleeping with this Arthur for a long time. She said she loves you too, and a lot of other stuff. She has to talk to you and persuade you to leave things as they are. Then her sister came and said a lot of things too. DJKJ Michael fell silent. VDNJ, and what about you? DJKJ VDJNJ, I didn't want to push him towards any decision. He had to decide for himself. DJKJ VDJNJ, I don't have a mother and sister anymore. I don't want to see or hear from them again. DJJ? It seemed like Michael even choked up. VGNJ, rest. I'll call you tomorrow. DJKJ? The next day, I was awakened by the doorbell. Rubbing my eyes, I went to the door and turned the key. VGN Mike Zaretsky, DJKJ, a young police sergeant, stared at me sternly. VJJNJ, yes, what happened? DJKJ, I asked. VJJ, take your identification documents with you and come with us. DJKJ, the sergeant said, holding the door with his hand. It seemed I hadn't managed to convince Arthur that my intentions were serious. I dialed a familiar number. A woman, probably a receptionist, answered. VDJ, hello. May I speak to Dmitry Mitrik? This is Zaretsky calling. DJKJ VDJ Jim. Sorry, he's in a meeting right now. What can I pass on to him? DJKJ. The receptionist's voice remained impassive. VDJ, and you tell him I've been detained by the police. DJKJ VJ, and you all right? He'll relay the message. DJK, the woman disconnected. The investigator is currently busy. You'll have to wait. The sleepy lieutenant nodded to his assistant. VDJ, please follow me. DJKJ. The grumpy sergeant led me. The door to the cell closed behind me with a clang. I sat down on a bench bolted to the floor, leaned against the wall, and closed my eyes. I didn't know how long the proceedings would take. However, as soon as something was resolved in my fate, I would immediately file for a divorce. I'd transfer the apartment to my eldest grandson and leave the city. I had enough money to get by for the time being. As for the future, I thought about Maxine. Michael would take care of her. I drifted off without realizing it. I woke up when the door to the cell slammed shut. The same stern sergeant escorted me to the investigator. VDJ, what's your relationship with Anna Golova? DJK. the investigator asked, without looking up from the pile of papers. VJ, who is she? VJKJ, I inquired. VDJNE, yesterday evening you brought her to the city hospital's emergency room with moderately severe bodily injuries. DJKJ. The investigator finally raised his eyes to me. I realized that he was referring to the woman I had taken to the hospital. VDJNJ, the attending doctor, called the police and provided us with your information and phone number, suspecting your involvement in assaulting this woman. DJKJJ, VDJNJ, when it seems like something is wrong, they call the police. DJJJ, I smirked. It was a relief to know it wasn't Arthur. That was a good thing. VDNJ, I found the woman injured on the road. She was beaten up badly, so I drove her to the hospital. DJKJ, VDNJ, what does she say? DJKJ, VDNJ, nothing yet. She underwent surgery and she's still asleep after the anesthesia. DJKJJ. The investigator rearranged some papers. VDJNJA, broken rib, punctured her lung. DJKJ. I shrugged. VJNJ, so, am I supposed to sit here until she wakes up? DJKJ, I asked irritably. VDJNJ, you'll have to. We need to get to the bottom of this. DJKJ. The investigator pressed a button, summoning the guard. At that moment, the phone on the desk rang. The major listened to someone's report for a long time, occasionally glancing at me. Then he carefully hung up the phone. DJNJ, the victim, came to her senses. The previous day, she had been beaten by her roommate. She tried to run away from him, but he caught her and continued to torture her. You got there just in time. She has no complaints. DJKJ. The guard escorted me to the guardroom, and I got my property. But no sooner had I signed for it than the door slammed behind me, and a familiar superior voice said irritably, VDJNJ, call the head of the department, quickly. DJKJ. I turned around and saw Police General Belov himself. A nervous lieutenant colonel popped up from somewhere. VDJNJ, Comrade Lieutenant General. DJKJ, he tried to report, but the general interrupted him. VDJNJ, what's going on here? What a mess. Where's Colonel Zaretsky? DJKJ, VD. The colonel stammered and babbled. DJKJ, VJNJ, now he'll clarify. DJK. I realized that it was time to rescue the lieutenant colonel and gently touched the general's shoulder. VDJNJ already been released. Everything is fine. Everything is sorted out, VJKJ, I said calmly, trying not to irritate the general. VJNJ, wait. I'm busy right now. DJKJ. The general continued to stare at the lieutenant colonel. Then he turned sharply to me. VJNGs, that's you. Have you been released? DJKJ. In the voice of the head of the department was genuine surprise. VJNG, I told you, everything has been sorted out. Don't scare the good people. DJKJ. I smiled. VJNJJ, how about some tea? JKJJ. The voice of the head of the department. By lunchtime, I was home. I was met by a happy Maxine. After meeting with General Belov, my former subordinate, my mood had improved. I didn't want to eat. The head of the department treated us not only to tea, but also to sandwiches with caviar and sausage. Of course, he did it. It's not every day that the head of the regional police department comes to visit. The lieutenant colonel offered us some cognac as well. The general drank, and I politely declined. There were other things to do. Michael didn't know anything about my detention. That's good. He didn't need any more trouble. I could rely on my connections for now. After feeding Maxine, I went to the courthouse. I wrote a divorce petition, handed it over to the clerk's office, and after a few words with the clerk, went outside. 5 p.m. Suddenly, I remembered the woman who had been beaten up. I wondered how she was doing. I stopped by the supermarket, bought some fruit, a good sausage, bread, and a couple of juice packets. Half an hour later, I was at the hospital. I remembered the victim's name, Golova. At the information desk, I found out which room she was in. Having put on a robe, I went to the elevators. Suddenly, Linda jumped out from around the corner. Strange, she works in another hospital. VDJNJ, why are you here, VDJKJ? Frightened, she said. VJNGI vacated the apartment. DJKJ, I realized that there was a lover lying here, and Linda thought that I was going to kill him. VDJNJ, where are the keys? DJKJ, I asked dryly. VJNG, I threw them in the mailbox. DJKA Linda stammered. VJNG Mike, let's talk calmly. I'm begging you, VJKJJ VJNG Linda, there's nothing to talk about. You've already told me everything, and I've told you everything. I didn't want to start from the beginning. DJKJ VJNG Jim, very sorry for the way things turned out. VJKJ. Linda lowered her head, trying not to look me in the eye. VJNG, I was wrong. I didn't think it would turn out this way. JKJ, she looked up, her eyes filled with tears. VJNG, it's too late for regrets. You can't get the past back. DJKJ, I sighed. What was happening reminded me of a scene from a bad melodrama. VJN, but we have children, grandchildren. We've been together for so many years. VJKJ Linda clung to words like a drowning man to a straw. VDJNJ, you made your own choice. You found someone else and wanted to force me to put up with your amorous antics. DJKJ? I looked at my watch. It was time to say goodbye. None of this made sense. VJNJ, only more thing. Don't call me Mike. That's what my beloved wife called me, but she died 30 years ago. DJKJ, VJNJ, but I love you, VDJKJ. Linda tried to take my hand. VJNJ, I don't believe it. That's no way to love. Goodbye. DJKJ, I cautiously entered the room. A young woman with a bandaged head was lying motionless, covered by a sheet. When she heard me enter, she slowly turned her head in my direction. VJNG, is that you? DJKJ, she whispered faintly. VDJNJ, thank you. JKJ, I put the groceries on the nightstand. At that moment, a nurse entered the room. VDJNJ, you a relative? DJKJ, she asked. VJNJ, not really, just an acquaintance. DJKJ. I didn't know how to answer correctly. The nurse looked at the patient. VDJNJ, the head of the department, wants to talk to you. JKK? She nodded towards the door. VDJN, have a seat. DJKJ. A handsome man in an unbuttoned robe nodded me to a chair. VDJNJ, we've done everything we can, but the patient needs another long operation. The sooner the better. DJKJ, VDJNJ, so what's the deal? DJKJ, I shrugged. VDJNJ, there are two problems. She has a very rare blood type, and we don't have it right now. We called the blood transfusion station, but they don't have it either. We have to look in another area, and that takes time. DJKJ. The doctor turned over some papers. VDJNJ second, VDJKJJ, he continued. VDJNJ, the surgery itself costs money, plus rehabilitation. DJKJ, VDJNJ, how much? DJKJ, I asked. The man wrote the amount on a piece of calendar paper and turned to me. VDJNJ, that's a lot. That's almost a third of my entire savings. I don't know this woman at all. I've seen her twice and not for a long time. DJKJ, VJJNJ, what about her husband? DJKJ, VZJNJ tried to contact him, but he's nowhere to be found. They're not even married. They just live together, so there's no point in expecting money from him. DJKJ. The doctor sighed. VDNJ, the woman is young. She should live. DJKJ. I sat there thinking, yes, I'm in trouble. No relatives. VGN, sorry. She's from another region. No parents, no relatives. DJKJ, VDNJ, what blood type do you need? DJKJ, I asked. The doctor told me it's my blood type. VDNJ, do you need a lot? DJKJ, I stood up. VDJNJ, do the operation. It'll pay all the expenses. DJKJ. 3 months passed. I periodically came to the hospital helping to take care of the patient. The operation was successful, and the woman recovered quickly, a young body. I took Anna to the park in a wheelchair, then I helped her learn to walk again. Finally, the day came when she was discharged. VDNJ, where can I take you? Do you have anyone close to you? DJKJ, the woman cried. It's understandable. She must have been dreading this day. VDJNJ Kai, let's go to my place. DJKJ, VJNJ Kai? DJKJ? I took her few belongings and helped her to the car. I put her in a spare room of my large apartment. Soon she finally recovered and began to help me with the household chores. She even tried to get a job, but I held her back. Not now. Too little time had passed since the surgery. Maxine quickly made friends with my tenant and accompanied her on walks in the park. I was calm. With such a bow, she was not afraid of anyone now. So we lived like neighbors. Anna was 32 years old. She was good enough for me except as a daughter. I had no plans for her, could not be. She lived and lived. Linda lived with her daughter and still did not leave attempts to return to me, even though we were already divorced. She would not marry her lover. I never spoke to my ex-daughter. She seemed to have cut me out of her life forever. Several times my son-in-law called and tried to apologize in a guilty voice. Michael and Nancy often visited me. The grandchildren didn't forget, but only Michael's. Jessica forbade her children to communicate with me. Time passed, and one evening a crying Linda came to me. "VD&J, will you let me in?" "GKJ," she asked, standing on the threshold of the apartment. "VDJ, come into the kitchen." "DJKJ." I stepped aside to let her in. I put the kettle on. At that time, Anna came into the kitchen. When she saw Linda, she immediately disappeared. It seemed to me that in her eyes flashed jealousy. "VJJ, what happened? With your lover quarreled?" "JKJ," I asked coldly. Linda burst into tears. "VDJNJ, Jessica is bad. She's in intensive care. She needs a bone marrow transplant." "DJKJ," Linda sobbed even harder. "VDJNJ, what's this got to do with me? She has a loving father." "DJKJ?" I shrugged. "VDJNJ, my ex-daughter-in-law." "VDJKJ," Linda continued. "VJNJ's your blood type. You and Jessica are 100% compatible. You're her biological father." "DJK," Linda slid to the floor. "VJNJ, Mike, save her, I pray to God." "DJK," Linda knelt down in front of me. "VJNJ, Shez, your daughter. She hurt you very badly, but it's your child." "DJKJ," I remembered Jessica's contemptuous grin and her embrace with Arthur. "VJNJ, Linda, you did everything you could to tear our family apart. You took my daughter away from me. In fact, you almost destroyed me. If it weren't for Michael, I don't know what would have happened to me." "DJKJ," I spoke, looking into the eyes of a kneeling Linda. "VJ Ninjan, now you come to me and say that you made a mistake in your calculations. It turns out that my daughter is mine after all, and when I find out about it, I should jump with happiness and run to save her. Remember, I don't have a daughter, and I don't think I ever did. The one you're trying to pass off as my daughter is just as traitorous as you are, if not worse." "GKJ," I turned to the window. "VGJNJ, I don't want to see you again. Any questions for Papa Arthur?" "JKJ, VGen, no, you can't do this. Without this surgery, she's going to die." "JKA, Linda, wake up." In tears, Linda was already screaming. "VGen, go away. I've told you everything. This is not my business." "DJKJ." I left the kitchen. Anna slipped past me. I saw how she helped Linda to get up, how she gave her water. They talked about something for a while. Probably Anna was trying to comfort Linda. Then my ex left. You know, I didn't abuse Linda. I didn't take pleasure in killing her with words. I just told her what she wanted me to do. By cheating on me with Arthur. The daughter is not mine. She has a father. Michael arrived in the evening. We sat in the kitchen for a long time. He told me about his sister. Her condition was very serious. VDJ, if we don't operate soon, it could end very badly. Dad, I've been examined for medical reasons. I can't be a donor. It's almost impossible to find another one. VGKJ, Michael sighed. I could see he felt sorry for his sister, but he didn't ask me for anything. After a pause, I said, VDNJ, Michael, I'm going away for a couple of weeks. Look after Anna and Maxine. It'll be far away, and there will be no communication. DKJ, Michael looked at me questioningly. I spread my hands. VDJNJ Mitri Mitrik asked me. DJKJ Michael nodded understandingly. I carefully sat down in the driver's seat. My back still hurt, but it was tolerable. The doctors had warned me that my back would be sore for a long time after the operation. All the way home, I pondered my next steps. My life was on pause, and I didn't know which way to go from here. I no longer had a family. Michael's on his own, but what about Anna? She has no one. How will she be without a place to live and without money? My cell phone rang. Linda. What does she want again? VJ and Jim calling to tell you, you idiot. Only a scoundrel would refuse to help his daughter. You're dead to me. Do you hear me? Arthur found a donor for Jessica, and she's already been operated on, and now you have to live with it. GKJJ, She hung up. I was even relieved. I was finally rid of the ballast. VJ, you're not going to tell them anything? DJKJ Michael exclaimed indignantly. VJ, no. GKJ, VJ, but why? You saved Jessica's life. DJKJ Michael even blushed with resentment for me. Linda also managed to call him, and he immediately came to me. VDJNJ Michael, no matter what I say, she's my daughter. I never doubted it, unlike her mother, VDJKJ. I spoke with absolutely no emotion. VDJNJ, so I did what a father should do. This has nothing to do with resentment. I'm asking you to keep this between us. Neither Linda nor your sister must know anything. DJKJ. A month later, I exchanged the apartment. I gave the 2-room apartment to my grandson and the 1-room apartment to Anna. I opened a bank account in her name and put half my money in it. We are responsible for those we tame. Anna sobbed, saying goodbye to me. Probably she imagined her future life differently, but my conscience was clear. I did not promise her anything and did not give her any hopes. She is a young woman and will still find her happiness. True, lately I began to think of her more and more often, but nothing loneliness and hard work cure the soul. I packed my belongings, took Maxine, and left for an abandoned village. I had plans to repair my grandmother's house and settle forever in the wilderness on the edge of a huge reserve. Another door was open and I stepped boldly onto a new road. I never saw Linda or Jessica again. Their further life did not concern me. Linda was seized with noble anger at her ex-husband. He thought he was the center of the earth. We did without him, thanks to Arthur. If it hadn't been for his connections, things might have ended badly. But thank God Jessica is being discharged tomorrow. Another month of rehabilitation and my daughter will be on her feet. True, we had to pay good money for a donor, but health is worth money. Linda was walking down the hospital corridor when she saw that the office of the head of the neurosis department was not locked. Apparently, Nikolai Gregorich had gone somewhere urgently. He even forgot to close the office. Linda stopped and without thinking slipped inside. She knew where the case histories were kept, so she found the right folder almost immediately. She wanted to know the name of the donor who had made Jessica survive. When she opened the folder and found the name of the man who had saved her daughter, she couldn't believe her eyes. She even blinked as many times as she could, thinking she was imagining it. Zaretsky Mike, father. Below it was written in blue ink. Ingruously. VDJ and well, how's Jessica? DJ. Arthur met Linda with a satisfied grin. VJ they're discharging her tomorrow. VDDJKJ. Linda silently approached her lover. She stood for a moment as if gathering her thoughts, then she slapped him with all her might. Arthur's face twitched and his glasses fell from his nose and flew to the floor. I'll be on my knees until he forgives me, VJKJ. Linda turned to her daughter. Vigent, what a fool I was! What have I done? DAKJ. Tears were streaming from her eyes. VJ and Jim going to him right now. GKJ. Jessica was silent. She was in shock and didn't understand what to do. The truth collapsed on her like a courier train derailed, and it was all her fault. She had torn the love for her father from her heart and thrown herself into the arms of a stranger, a swindler who wanted to make money out of her illness. Linda went up to the right floor and pressed the bell button. The door was opened by a strange man. VJ hello, is Mike at home? DJKJJ. Linda tried to see behind the man's back the silhouette of her ex-husband. VDJ this must be the former owner. We bought the apartment from the agency, and where he is now I do not know. Excuse me. DJ, the man closed the door. Linda leaned against the wall. Her legs shook and she grabbed the railing to keep from falling. Tears covered her eyes. She stood for a while, then began to slowly descend the stairs. A month later, Michael came to see me. He greeted me by the hand and stared at the new log cabin with surprise. V&G, you did it yourself? JK? He shook his head incredulously. I smiled and shrugged. VJ Yen, there was someone else sitting in my son's car, but the windows were tinted so I couldn't see. DJK, VJ Joe, who are you with, Nancy? DJK, J. I put my palm to my forehead. The sun was shining directly into my eyes. VDJ, no, Nancy's at home. It's someone who came to see you. JKJ, my son laughed. I opened the door and was stunned. Anna. She smiled hesitantly. VJNG, you're not going to send me away? DJKJ? I hugged her, stunned by the sudden happiness that had fallen on me. And around us, Maxine was barking happily. Thanks for watching. What did you think of Mike's journey and the choices he made? Do you believe he handled the situation with his wife and family the right way? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more incredible stories. See you in the next video.